The abandoned sleigh ride. When a group of travelers finds a beautifully decorated sleigh in the middle of a snow-covered forest, they see it as a lucky break on a bitterly cold night. The driver, a shadowy figure cloaked in frost, offers them a ride to the nearest village. But as the sleigh travels deeper into the forest, strange things begin to happen. Time seems to warp, the passengers experience terrifying visions, and the driver's true purpose becomes clear. They aren't being taken to safety, they're being delivered to something far worse. Chapter 1. The Found Sleigh. On a frigid winter evening, 4 strangers, Emma, a single mother, Jack, a grizzled hunter, Nora, a traveling artist, and Theo, a lost teenager, find themselves stranded in a remote forest after a snowstorm derails their plans. They come across a horse-drawn sleigh, ornately decorated and seemingly abandoned, with a cloaked figure holding the reins. The driver, speaking in a voice like the wind through icy branches, offers them a ride to the nearest village. Desperate, they accept. Chapter 2. A Frosty Silence. As the sleigh glides through the forest, an eerie silence envelops them. The horses' hooves make no sound on the snow, and the passengers begin to feel an unnatural chill. Theo notices that the horses don't seem to breathe. Emma tries to make conversation with the driver, but he remains silent, his face obscured by the hood. Nora sketches the scene, but her drawings begin to change on their own, depicting dark and twisted shapes. Chapter 3. The Forest That Never Ends. Hours pass, but the forest remains unchanged, as though they're traveling in circles. Jack grows suspicious and confronts the driver, but the figure merely points ahead. The passengers notice the trees now bear strange markings, runes that seem to glow faintly in the moonlight. Theo hears whispers calling his name and feels compelled to jump from the sleigh, but Emma pulls him back. Chapter 4. Visions in the Snow. The passengers begin experiencing haunting visions. Emma sees her missing daughter walking through the trees, calling for help. Nora watches as her sketches come to life, showing the passengers consumed by shadows. Jack hears the voice of his deceased wife, urging him to follow her into the woods. Each vision tempts them to leave the sleigh, but the driver's whip cracks, snapping them out of their trances. Chapter 5. The Frozen Path. The sleigh reaches a frozen river, where the ice reflects horrifying images of the passengers' worst fears. As the sleigh moves across the river, the ice begins to crack, revealing dark water beneath. Shapes move under the surface, hands, faces, and monstrous forms. Jack tries to take control of the sleigh, but the driver's hood falls back, revealing a skull-like face wreathed in frost. Chapter 6. The Driver's Bargain. The driver speaks for the first time, offering a cryptic bargain. If one of them willingly sacrifices themselves, the others will be allowed to go free. The passengers argue, mistrust building among them. Theo accuses Jack of hiding something, and Jack admits he's a fugitive who fled into the forest to escape justice. The sleigh seems to respond, speeding up as the river of ice cracks behind them. Chapter 7. The Forest of Shadows. The sleigh leaves the river and enters a part of the forest where the trees themselves seem alive. Dark, twisted branches reach out, and shadowy figures walk alongside the sleigh, whispering the passengers' secrets. Nora realizes the forest reflects their guilt and regrets, feeding on their darkest memories. She recalls a mistake from her past that cost a friend's life, and the shadows begin pulling her from the sleigh. Chapter 8. The First Sacrifice. To save Nora, Jack offers himself to the driver. The sleigh halts, and Jack steps off, disappearing into the shadows. The sleigh lurches forward again, but the passengers are left shaken. Emma notices Jack's seat is now covered in frost, and the temperature in the sleigh drops further. Chapter 9. The Final Destination. The sleigh approaches a massive, snow-covered clearing dominated by a towering black tree. The passengers realize this is their destination. The tree is alive, pulsating with energy and surrounded by countless frozen figures, the souls of past travelers. The driver halts the sleigh and gestures for the passengers to step out. Chapter 10. The Choice. Emma refuses to leave the sleigh, clutching Theo protectively, while Nora confronts the driver. She demands to know what the tree is, and the driver reveals it feeds on the despair and guilt of those it consumes. Emma offers herself in exchange for Theo's freedom, but Nora insists she's the one who should stay, as she's been running from her past for too long. The two women argue until Theo, seeing no way out, steps forward voluntarily. Epilogue: The endless ride. The sleigh departs the clearing, now carrying only Emma and Nora. They watch in silence as Theo's figure vanishes into the tree. The driver guides them back to the edge of the forest, where a village lies in the distance. Years later, travelers speak of a mysterious sleigh that appears in the woods, offering salvation to the lost. But the passengers know better: the ride never truly ends. The Christmas Eve Church Massacre. A peaceful Christmas Eve service at a small-town church turns into a nightmare when a mysterious, cursed relic, a blood-stained cross, unleashes a dark power. The relic transforms the devout congregation into grotesque, undead Christmas-themed monsters. As the church doors seal shut, a handful of survivors must navigate the chaos, battling twisted versions of careless, Santa figures, and reanimated nativity statues to break the curse before midnight. Chapter 1: The Christmas Eve Service. The story begins with the townspeople of Evergreen Hollow gathering at St. Nicholas Church for the annual midnight mass. Families in festive attire fill the pews, the choir sings classic hymns, and the warm glow of candles fills the space. Among the attendees are Father Michael, the beloved priest with a mysterious past; Clara, a skeptical teenager forced to attend by her religious mother; Paul, the town's mayor, hoping for a peaceful night after a stressful year; Evelyn is an elderly woman who claims to have seen something dark in the church before. Before the service begins, a stranger arrives, delivering an old, tarnished cross as a gift for the altar. The congregation murmurs in unease, but Father Michael, intrigued, accepts it. Chapter 2: The Stranger's Warning. The stranger, dressed in tattered clothes and looking unnaturally pale, warns Father Michael in a cryptic tone. This cross carries the weight of the forsaken. Be sure it does not take the light from your flock. The stranger vanishes before anyone can question him further. Despite misgivings, Father Michael places the relic on the altar. As Mass begins, Clara notices a strange glow emanating from the cross. Evelyn whispers that it feels wrong, but no one believes her. Chapter 3: The First Transformation. During the choir's rendition of O Holy Night, the cross pulses with a crimson light. The candles flicker violently, and the air grows cold. A choir member collapses mid-song, convulsing before transforming into a grotesque, gnarled creature with glowing red eyes and icicle-like claws. The creature attacks the nearest parishioners, spreading the curse. One by one, townspeople are transformed into horrifying Christmas-themed monsters. Careless with mouths stretched impossibly wide, singing distorted hymns. Santa figures with blood-stained suits and coal-black eyes. Nativity statues come to life as monstrous, porcelain-skinned abominations. The church doors slam shut, trapping everyone inside. Chapter 4: Survival Instincts. Amid the chaos, Clara, Father Michael, Paul, and Evelyn manage to hide in the vestry. They realize the cursed cross is the source of the transformation, feeding on the congregation's faith and turning it into something dark. Evelyn reveals she's read about such relics in an old grimoire and believes destroying the cross will break the curse. However, to do so, they must reach the altar in the now blood-soaked church, overrun by the monstrous horde. Chapter 5: The Nativity Horror. The group sneaks into the main hall, trying to avoid detection. They're ambushed by the reanimated nativity scene figures, including a warped version of the Virgin Mary wielding a flaming candle and an animal-shaped monstrosity made of broken stable wood and hay. Father Michael uses holy water to weaken them, and Clara shows surprising bravery, smashing one creature with a broken pew. Chapter 6: The Choir's Dirge. The survivors reach the choir loft, hoping to use it as a vantage point to plan their next move. The cursed choir appears, their haunting voices causing physical pain and disorientation. Paul sacrifices himself to create a distraction, luring the creatures away while the others descend to the altar. Chapter 7: The Cross's Secrets. At the altar, Evelyn reveals the true nature of the cross. It belonged to a rogue priest who used it to curse those who had wronged him. Father Michael, horrified, confesses that the priest was his mentor, cast out of the church years ago for heresy. The relic's power grows, sensing Michael's guilt. It tempts him to surrender, offering to save the others if he gives himself up. Chapter 8: The Battle of Faith. The monsters launch a final assault as midnight approaches. Clara discovers a cache of blessed artifacts in the church's basement: crucifixes, candles, and holy water. Armed with these tools, the group fights back. Evelyn is mortally wounded, but not before setting the church's massive Christmas tree on fire, creating a barrier against the advancing horde. Chapter 9: The Breaking Point. Father Michael reaches the altar, struggling to resist the cross's pull. Clara confronts him, urging him to destroy it. The cross retaliates by summoning a spectral version of Michael's former mentor, who accuses him of betrayal and weakness. In a moment of clarity, Michael overcomes his guilt and plunges a blessed dagger into the cross. A blinding light engulfs the church as the curse begins to lift. Chapter 10: A Hollow Christmas. As dawn breaks, the surviving parishioners awaken, human once more. The church is in ruins, and the cursed cross lies shattered on the altar. Evelyn's body is nowhere to be found, but her grimoire remains, opened to a page about redemption. Clara and Father Michael step outside, scarred but alive, vowing to rebuild and protect the town from future darkness. The Kringle Mirror. In the small, snowy town of Wintervale, a family inherits an ornate, antique mirror rumored to have belonged to a dark order devoted to the other Santa. When the mirror is hung in their home during the holiday season, it begins showing glimpses of alternate Christmas realities, some filled with festive cheer, others with grotesque and violent horrors. As the family becomes obsessed with the visions, they realize the mirror is not just reflecting possibilities, it's opening a doorway. Chapter 1: The Arrival of the Mirror. The story opens with the Taylor family, Maggie, a history professor, Tom, her skeptical husband, and their teenage daughter Lila, receiving a mysterious crate from a distant relative's estate. Inside is an intricately carved mirror with a gold frame adorned with holly and bells, inscribed with the words, "The truth of the season lies beyond the glass." Lila convinces her parents to hang the mirror over the fireplace for Christmas. Strange occurrences begin almost immediately. Chapter 2: The First Reflection. As the family gathers to decorate the tree, Lila notices movement in the mirror. She swears she saw a version of their living room, but with shadowy figures standing behind them. Maggie dismisses it as a trick of the light, but Tom jokes that it's probably haunted. That night, Maggie dreams of a twisted version of Christmas morning where the family opens presents that contain horrifying surprises: a box of writhing worms, a severed doll head. When she wakes, the mirror's surface ripples like water before returning to normal. Chapter 3: A Glimpse of Joy. The next day, the mirror shows a cheerful alternate reality. The family is laughing together in front of an enormous tree, surrounded by piles of perfectly wrapped gifts. The image is so idyllic that it lures Maggie into staring for hours, yearning for that version of their life. But when Lila peers into the mirror, she sees something different. The family celebrating Christmas in eerie silence, their faces frozen in unnatural grins. Chapter 4: The Mirror's Power. Tom begins to grow uneasy as the mirror shows increasingly strange reflections. One night, it reveals a scene of a snow-covered town where Christmas carolers roam, but their voices are replaced by screams. Tom tries to take the mirror down, but it resists, as though anchored to the wall by an unseen force. Maggie, on the other hand, becomes obsessed with the mirror, convinced it holds a deeper meaning. She discovers its origin in an old book about folklore. It belonged to a secretive sect that worshipped a sinister counterpart to Santa Claus, known as Kringle Noir. Chapter 5: The First Crossing. Lila accidentally touches the mirror's surface while gazing into it and finds her hand sinking into the glass. She screams, pulling back just in time. The mirror begins to glow faintly, and from that moment, its visions become more interactive. The Taylors hear faint sounds from the other side: laughter, bells, and the occasional chilling scream. Maggie theorizes that the mirror is a portal, and Tom grows desperate to destroy it. However, every attempt to break the mirror fails. The glass repairs itself instantly. Chapter 6: The Darkest Reflection. One evening, the family gathers around the mirror to confront it. Instead of their reflections, they see a twisted version of their home. The alternate reality is filled with grotesque Christmas decorations, ornaments made of bone, garlands of sinew, and a grotesque Christmas tree adorned with severed doll parts. In this vision, the alternate versions of themselves are not celebrating, they are hunting someone. The family recoils in horror as the alternate tailors turn toward the mirror and seem to see them. Chapter 7. The Kringle Manifestation. The mirror begins to influence the real world. Snow falls indoors, the sound of sleigh bells echoes through the house at odd hours, and a foul stench wafts from the glass. Lila discovers claw marks on the walls that weren't there before. Maggie becomes increasingly distant, murmuring about the perfect Christmas. One night, a shadowy figure with glowing red eyes, Kringle Noir, appears in the mirror, whispering, "Come through, and all your Christmas wishes will come true." Chapter 8. The Other Side. Lila is dragged into the mirror by unseen hands while her parents sleep. She finds herself in the twisted Christmas world from the reflections. Snowmen with skeletal faces and sharpened candy canes stalk her through a maze of grotesque decorations. Meanwhile, Maggie and Tom wake to find Lila missing. The mirror shows her trapped in the alternate world, running for her life. Kringle Noir appears again, taunting them and offering Maggie a deal. She can join Lila and live in the perfect Christmas reality, or lose her daughter forever. Chapter 9. The Final Confrontation. Maggie and Tom enter the mirror, armed with holiday-themed items turned into makeshift weapons, a sharpened tree topper, a string of lights used as a whip. They fight through a twisted Christmas village, facing off against monstrous versions of holiday icons. A giant nutcracker with razor-sharp teeth. Elves wielding jagged candy cane spears. A reanimated Santa figure stitched together from flesh. They finally confront Kringle Noir in his lair, a throne room made of shattered ornaments and frozen blood. Maggie uses the inscription on the mirror as a spell to weaken him, forcing him back into the glass. Chapter 10. Breaking the Curse. The family escapes the mirror, dragging Lila back with them. In the chaos, the mirror begins to crack, and Kringle Noir howls in rage as he's pulled into the shattering glass. When the mirror finally breaks, the house returns to normal. Maggie burns the fragments, ensuring the curse can't spread. The family embraces, vowing to spend Christmas appreciating each other rather than chasing perfection. As they leave the room, a faint sound of sleigh bells echoes in the distance, hinting that the mirror's curse may not be entirely gone. The Candy Cane Curse. In the bustling town of Hollyridge, a mysterious vendor appears every December, handing out oversized candy canes to children. The candy canes seem harmless at first, delicious and festive. But as the children consume them, they begin to change. Their bodies grow smaller, their features become exaggerated, and their behavior becomes increasingly erratic and sinister. It doesn't take long for the parents to realize their children are transforming into monstrous versions of Santa's elves, loyal only to the man who gave them the candy. Chapter 1. The Mysterious Vendor. The story begins in the town square of Hollyridge, decorated in dazzling holiday cheer. Among the Christmas market stalls, a new vendor appears overnight. A gaunt man dressed in old-fashioned holiday attire, selling oversized, intricately striped candy canes. He has an unsettling smile and eyes that seem to glitter unnaturally. Children flock to his stall, enchanted by his charisma and the promise of free candy. He hands each child a candy cane with a cryptic warning. Finish it, and you'll discover the true meaning of Christmas. Chapter 2. The First Signs. 9-year-old Eli is one of the first children to try the candy. He marvels at its flavor, unlike anything he's tasted before. But later that night, he complains of itchy skin and strange dreams of working in a dark, oppressive workshop filled with broken toys and maniacal laughter. The next day, Eli's parents notice his ears are slightly pointed, and his fingers seem unnaturally long. His behavior grows erratic, as he becomes obsessed with building crude toys out of anything he can find. Chapter 3. The Transformation Spreads. More children around town begin exhibiting similar symptoms. They develop pale skin, exaggerated features, and an eerie giggle that grows louder and more unsettling with each passing day. Parents, initially dismissing the symptoms as part of a flu outbreak, begin to panic as their children stop responding to their names and start calling the mysterious vendor master. Claire, a single mother, notices her daughter Lily sharpening a pair of scissors into a pointed tool and chanting a strange, rhythmic tune. Wrap and bow, build and sew, the master's gift we all must know. Chapter 4. A Horrifying Discovery. Claire confronts the vendor, demanding answers. He cryptically tells her, "The children are fulfilling their purpose. Christmas must have its workers, after all." Claire begins investigating the vendor's origins. She learns of a local legend about a cursed toymaker, Rudolph Grimsby, who was banished centuries ago for enslaving children to create his sinister toys. His curse allowed him to return once every 100 years to rebuild his workforce through enchanted candy canes. Chapter 5: The Workshop Unveiled. The children begin disappearing from their homes at night, drawn to a hidden workshop deep in the woods. Claire and a group of desperate parents follow the trail of candy cane wrappers to a decrepit factory filled with grotesque, half-transformed children working tirelessly to assemble twisted, dangerous toys. They discover that the more the children consume the candy, the faster their transformations progress. Those who fully transform become monstrous elves with jagged teeth, glowing eyes, and an unbreakable loyalty to Grimsby. Chapter 6: The Plan to Stop Grimsby. Claire leads the parents in devising a plan to stop Grimsby. They learn that destroying his enchanted candy canes will sever his control over the children. However, Grimsby himself is protected by the Heart of Frost, a magical artifact that fuels his curse and powers the workshop. Claire realizes that to save the children, someone must destroy the Heart of Frost while resisting Grimsby's magic, which tempts adults with visions of their deepest desires. Chapter 7: The Confrontation. The parents storm the workshop, armed with whatever they can find: hammers, torches, and pure determination. They face off against the transformed children, trying to subdue them without causing harm. Claire infiltrates Grimsby's inner sanctum, where she finds him surrounded by rows of glowing candy canes and the Heart of Frost, a crystalline orb pulsating with eerie blue light. Grimsby tries to tempt her with a vision of a perfect Christmas, her deceased husband returned and her family reunited. Chapter 8: Breaking the Curse. Claire resists the temptation and shatters the Heart of Frost with a sledgehammer. The workshop begins to collapse, and the candy canes dissolve into ash. The children return to their human forms, though weak and confused. Grimsby, stripped of his power, withers into a pile of snow and shattered candy shards, cursing the town as he disappears. Chapter 9: The Aftermath. The children are reunited with their families, though the trauma of their ordeal lingers. The town resolves to protect itself from future threats by teaching the legend of Grimsby and warning against strangers bearing gifts. Claire, hailed as a hero, reflects on the true meaning of Christmas: not gifts or perfection, but protecting and cherishing loved ones. Chapter 10: A Final Warning. Months later, as winter fades, a child playing in the woods discovers a single, oversized candy cane buried in the snow. The camera pans to the horizon, where a faint, ghostly figure with glittering eyes watches from the shadows, hinting that Grimsby's curse may not be gone for good. The Midnight Gift. In the quaint, snowy town of Winter Haven, an unmarked gift box appears on a family's doorstep every Christmas Eve. Its glowing aura is mesmerizing, and despite warnings passed down for generations, the curious cannot resist opening it. By morning, someone in the household is always missing. This year, a young girl named Lily and her family become the gift's next recipients, determined to uncover its sinister secrets before they, too, vanish forever. Chapter 1: A Town's Unspoken Fear. The story begins in Winter Haven, a picturesque town steeped in holiday tradition, but also haunted by the legend of the Midnight Gift. Every Christmas Eve, a glowing gift appears at a doorstep, and by Christmas morning, a family member is inexplicably gone. The townsfolk speak of it in hushed tones, treating it as both myth and a terrible truth. 10-year-old Lily overhears a warning from her grandmother: "If it appears, you must not touch it." The gift chooses who it will take. Chapter 2: The Gift Arrives. On Christmas Eve, Lily's family, her parents, her older brother Jack, and her grandmother, settles in for the evening. The festive mood is interrupted when Lily notices a faint, otherworldly glow outside the front door. There it is, a small box wrapped in shimmering silver paper, with no tag or markings. Against her grandmother's frantic protests, Jack picks it up and places it on the coffee table. The box seems to hum softly, pulsing with warmth. Chapter 3: The Warning Ignored. Lily's parents dismiss her grandmother's fears as old superstitions. Curiosity overtakes Jack, who decides to open the gift despite his sister's protests. Inside is a delicate snow globe with a tiny house eerily resembling their own, surrounded by a dark, swirling blizzard. As Jack shakes the snow globe, an unsettling chill sweeps through the room. The lights flicker, and the glow from the gift fades. Lily notices the faint sound of whispering, but no one else seems to hear it. Chapter 4: The First Sign. That night, Jack begins to act strangely. He sleepwalks through the house, muttering incoherent phrases about a place beyond the snow. When Lily tries to wake him, his eyes flash with a faint glow before he collapses. The next morning, Jack is gone. His bed is neatly made, his shoes by the door, but there's no sign of him anywhere. Panicked, the family searches the house and surrounding woods. On the doorstep where the gift appeared, there's only a faint outline in the snow, as if someone had been dragged away. Chapter 5: The Snow Globe's Secret. Lily picks up the snow globe, staring into its swirling storm. She gasps as she spots a tiny figure inside, a figure that looks exactly like Jack, trapped and motionless. The whispers grow louder when she touches the globe, calling her name. Her grandmother reluctantly reveals an old family story. The midnight gift comes to those who've forgotten the true meaning of Christmas. It takes until the debt is paid. The snow globe is the key to finding Jack, but only if Lily dares to follow the whispers. Chapter 6: Into the Blizzard. That night, Lily hears the front door creak open and feels the icy wind of a blizzard. Clutching the snow globe, she ventures outside and finds herself in a world of endless snow and shadows. She discovers faint footprints leading to an eerie forest of frozen trees. The whispers guide her deeper into the blizzard, where she encounters flickering figures, ghostly remnants of others who had disappeared over the years. They warn her. Once the gift takes, it rarely gives back. Chapter 7: The Keeper of the Gift. At the heart of the frozen forest, Lily comes upon a massive, glowing tree adorned with countless unopened gifts. Beneath it sits a tall, gaunt figure cloaked in tattered red and silver robes, the keeper of the gift. The keeper explains that he is bound to collect souls for his master, an ancient entity who feeds on greed and selfishness. Jack was taken because he ignored the warnings and gave in to his curiosity. Chapter 8: A Test of Worth. The keeper offers Lily a choice. Leave now and forget Jack, sparing herself. Prove her worth by opening one of the cursed gifts, which contains a trial tailored to her deepest fears. Determined to save her brother, Lily chooses the trial. She opens a box, and her surroundings shift into a dark version of her home, where shadowy versions of her family accuse her of being selfish and ungrateful. Through her courage and selflessness, Lily overcomes the illusions, declaring her love for Jack and her family. The shadows dissipate, and the keeper acknowledges her triumph. Chapter 9: The Return. The keeper releases Jack, who emerges from the snow globe, dazed but alive. He warns that the entity behind the midnight gift is not truly gone, it only retreats until its next opportunity. As Lily and Jack flee the frozen world, the keeper offers one last cryptic warning. The midnight gift never forgets those who've opened it. They return to their home just as dawn breaks on Christmas morning, the glowing box now nothing more than ash. Chapter 10: The Last Glimmer. Months later, the family begins to heal from the ordeal, though Lily keeps the snow globe hidden as a reminder of their narrow escape. However, on the following Christmas Eve, Lily awakens to find a faint glow beneath her bed. She freezes as she hears the whispers again, louder this time, calling her name. The festive feast of terror. When a renowned chef hosts an exclusive holiday feast at a remote winter lodge, the promise of culinary bliss draws a select group of elite guests. However, the dishes are infused with a strange magic that forces each diner to relive their most harrowing Christmas memories. As the hallucinations grow more vivid, the guests realize they are being consumed by their darkest regrets, and the chef has a sinister agenda for the evening. Chapter 1: An Invitation to Remember. The story opens with several characters, each with their own complicated histories, receiving golden invitations to an exclusive holiday feast hosted by the mysterious and world-famous chef Laurent Frost. The feast is to take place at the luxurious Snowspire Lodge, a remote estate known for its extravagant holiday decor and opulence. Among the guests are Margaret, a widowed businesswoman avoiding Christmas since her husband's death. Daniel, a failed novelist searching for inspiration. The Allisons, a wealthy couple hiding their crumbling marriage. Elena, a struggling actress hoping to impress influential attendees. Each is promised a life-changing experience, unaware of what lies ahead. Chapter 2: The Lodge and the Legend. The guests arrive at Snowspire Lodge, which is breathtakingly decorated with towering Christmas trees, twinkling lights, and roaring fireplaces. They are greeted by Chef Laurent, a charming but unnervingly intense figure. His staff moves like clockwork, their expressions oddly blank. Laurent recounts the legend of the lodge. It was once the site of a grand holiday banquet where all the guests mysteriously disappeared, leaving only an untouched table of food behind. He laughs it off as a ghost story but hints at the importance of embracing the spirit of the season. Chapter 3: The Feast Begins. The meal is served in courses, each dish more exquisite than the last. The guests marvel at the flavors, textures, and presentation. Laurent explains that every dish is inspired by the essence of Christmas and designed to evoke deep emotions. As the first course, a delicate cranberry sorbet, is served, Margaret suddenly feels overwhelmed by memories of her late husband, specifically their last Christmas together. At first, she brushes it off as nostalgia, but the sensations grow more vivid and disorienting. Chapter 4: The Hallucinations. With each course, the hallucinations intensify. Daniel begins to see shadows of his estranged family at the edge of the room, their voices accusing him of abandoning them for his career. The Allisons relive a bitter Christmas morning where their infidelity and lies nearly destroyed them. Elena finds herself back in a humiliating childhood Christmas pageant where she failed to deliver her lines. The hallucinations are not random. They force each guest to confront deeply buried guilt and regrets. Chapter 5: The Chef's Revelation. As the main course, a succulent roasted goose, arrives, Chef Laurent begins to reveal his true intentions. He speaks cryptically about how Christmas is not only a time of joy but also a time when the weight of one's sins is most keenly felt. Laurent's charm turns menacing as he declares, "Tonight, you will feast on your past, and it will either nourish your soul or consume you entirely." Chapter 6: The Feast Turns Dark. The guests attempt to leave but find that the lodge doors are locked and the windows show nothing but swirling snow. Laurent's staff, who seem almost inhuman, block their escape. The next course, a rich, spiced pudding, induces even more harrowing visions. Margaret is haunted by the Christmas she and her husband fought bitterly before his sudden death, realizing she never apologized. Daniel watches his younger self burn his mother's handmade Christmas gift, a decision that broke her heart. The Allisons see their young daughter crying as they argued during Christmas dinner, a memory they'd repressed. Elena faces a vision of her future, alone and forgotten. Chapter 7: The Sinister Plan. Laurent reveals that the feast is not just a culinary experience but a ritual to feed the spirit of the season. He explains that their pain, guilt, and suffering are the true ingredients of his masterpiece, a dish that will grant him eternal creative genius. You came here hungry for indulgence, but you will leave as part of something far greater. The guests realize they are not simply reliving their memories, they are being drained by them. Chapter 8: Fighting the Feast. The guests band together to resist the hallucinations, determined to escape. They discover that the key to breaking Laurent's spell lies in rejecting his feast and confronting their regrets. However, the staff becomes more aggressive, and the hallucinations bleed into reality, making it difficult to distinguish friend from foe. Margaret takes the lead, realizing that her love for her husband can give her strength rather than guilt. Chapter 9: The Final Course. The dessert, a towering, golden Christmas cake, is revealed, glowing ominously. Laurent declares that the feast is complete and that their essence will be absorbed into the cake to finalize his ritual. In a desperate act, Margaret smashes the cake, disrupting the ritual and sending Laurent and his staff into a chaotic frenzy. The lodge begins to crumble around them, as if rejecting its own existence. Chapter 10: Escape and Redemption. The surviving guests flee the lodge, which vanishes into the snowstorm as they cross the threshold. Though shaken, each character emerges changed. Margaret finds closure with her husband's memory. Daniel decides to reconcile with his family. The Alissons vow to repair their marriage. Elena resolves to pursue her dreams with newfound confidence. As they leave, they find a single, untouched plate of food in the snow. Inscribed in chocolate are the words, "A feast is only as bitter as the soul that consumes it." The Wishing Star. On Christmas Eve, 10-year-old Lucy wishes upon the brightest star in the sky, longing to reunite her fractured family. But as the star begins to glow brighter and move closer to Earth, her wish twists into a horrifying reality. The star's true nature is revealed as an ancient cosmic entity, one that grants wishes at an unimaginable cost. Chapter 1: A Wishful Night. Lucy, a bright but lonely child, watches her separated parents argue during a Christmas Eve dinner at her grandparents' old farmhouse. Her father is distant, her mother is bitter, and the holiday feels more like a battle than a celebration. As she gazes out the frosted window, she notices a dazzling star glowing far brighter than the others. She recalls her grandmother's tale of the Christmas wishing star and quietly makes a heartfelt wish, "I wish we could all be together again, happy like we used to be." Chapter 2: A Star Descends. That night, Lucy wakes to find the star shining so brightly that it bathes the entire farmhouse in an eerie, cold light. Outside, the snow glows silver, and the shadows of the trees stretch unnaturally. The star appears closer, larger, and almost alive, its edges pulsing like a heartbeat. Strange things begin to happen. The family's old clock stops at midnight. The snow around the farmhouse becomes impossibly cold, trapping them inside. Lucy hears whispers in her room, coming from the direction of the star. Chapter 3: Twisted Gifts. The next morning, Lucy is excited to see her wish coming true. Her parents suddenly seem kinder, and everyone joins together to decorate the tree and share stories. However, as the day progresses, unsettling incidents occur. Lucy's father burns himself on the fireplace poker, and the wound glows faintly silver. Her mother stares at the star for hours, whispering to it like an old friend. A snowman Lucy built the day before is now in a different spot, its face twisted into a sinister grin. The star appears even closer, its light casting unsettling shadows throughout the house. Chapter 4: The Warning. Lucy's older brother, Ben, begins to notice the eerie changes. He tries to research the star, discovering ancient folklore about a celestial being called Stella Malefica, an entity that feeds on human desires, twisting wishes into traps. Ben warns Lucy that her wish might have summoned the star, but she refuses to believe him. She insists that the star is helping their family, even as the farmhouse creaks and groans under the weight of its unnatural glow. Chapter 5: Unraveling Reality. As the star grows larger, the family starts to exhibit strange behavior. Lucy's parents become overly cheerful, their smiles too wide, their voices too sweet. Her grandparents seem frozen in time, sitting motionless at the dining table. Ben sees the star's light creeping along the walls like tendrils, consuming the house inch by inch. Lucy begins to notice cracks in the illusion, her family's happiness feels forced, and her parents' laughter echoes unnaturally. She starts to fear that her wish has gone terribly wrong. Chapter 6: The Star's True Nature. The whispers Lucy heard earlier grow louder, forming words. The star speaks directly to her, promising to fulfill her wish completely but demanding something in return, her soul. The star reveals its true form in the night sky, a swirling, malevolent eye surrounded by spindly, glowing arms. It has been feeding on the family's emotions, growing stronger with every moment of forced happiness. Chapter 7: The Family Fractures. Ben tries to convince the rest of the family that they are in danger, but the star's influence is too strong. Their parents lash out violently, accusing Ben of ruining the holiday. The house begins to twist and shift, with walls elongating and furniture moving on its own. Lucy, now terrified, admits to making the wish. Ben assures her they can undo it, but the star's hold over their parents makes it nearly impossible to act. Chapter 8: Breaking the Wish. Ben discovers an old journal in the attic, written by their grandmother. It contains a warning about the wishing star, describing how it appeared to her as a child and nearly destroyed her family. The only way to stop the star is to reject the wish entirely and destroy the object binding it to the house, a family heirloom star ornament on the Christmas tree. Chapter 9. The Final Confrontation. The star's light grows blinding, consuming the farmhouse in an otherworldly glow. Lucy and Ben race to the living room, where the star ornament pulses with the same sinister energy as the celestial entity. Their parents, now puppets controlled by the star, try to stop them. In a tense showdown, Ben fends off their parents while Lucy smashes the ornament with a fireplace poker. The star lets out a deafening roar as its light fades, retreating back into the sky. The house shakes violently, and then everything goes dark. Chapter 10. A New Dawn. The family wakes up on Christmas morning as if from a dream. The farmhouse is back to normal, the snow outside is calm, and the star has disappeared. Lucy's parents are themselves again, apologizing for their earlier behavior and vowing to repair their fractured relationship. Lucy and Ben share a quiet moment, reflecting on the power of wishes and the danger of tampering with forces beyond their understanding. As they exchange gifts, Lucy glances out the window at the clear morning sky. For a moment, she thinks she sees a faint glimmer where the star once was, but it's gone before she can be sure. The festive phantoms. A family decorates their Christmas tree with antique ornaments inherited from a distant relative. Unbeknownst to them, each ornament contains the trapped soul of a restless spirit. As the clock ticks toward midnight on Christmas Eve, the spirits begin to escape, turning the once festive holiday into a night of terror. Chapter 1. The Family Heirloom. The Palmer family, Emma, David, and their children, 12-year-old Lily and 16-year-old Max, receive a box of antique Christmas ornaments from Emma's late great-aunt, Eleanor. Though the ornaments are beautiful, they have an eerie quality. Faces carved into the glass seem almost alive, with expressions that shift depending on the angle of the light. Lily is captivated by one ornament, a shimmering blue globe with a faint crack running down its center. Despite its fragile state, Emma insists on placing it at the center of their tree. Chapter 2. A Silent Warning. Strange things begin to happen as the family decorates the tree. The ornaments make faint chiming sounds, even when untouched. The family dog, Bailey, growls at the tree but refuses to enter the living room. Max notices cold spots in the air around the tree, but Emma dismisses it as a draft. Later that night, Lily hears faint whispers coming from the living room, but when she checks, she finds only the tree, its lights softly glowing. Chapter 3. The First Escape. On Christmas Eve, the family gathers around the tree for a quiet evening. As the clock strikes 11 p.m., the temperature in the room drops sharply. The ornaments begin to emit a dim glow, and the whispers grow louder. Without warning, the cracked blue globe shatters, releasing a ghostly figure, a pale, translucent woman with hollow eyes. The apparition lets out a piercing wail, and the lights in the house flicker. The family is stunned, but before they can react, the figure vanishes, leaving behind an icy chill. Chapter 4. The Ornaments Awaken. As midnight approaches, more ornaments begin to crack and release spirits. A shadowy figure crawls out of a crimson bell ornament, dragging darkness across the room. A childlike ghost emerges from a silver star, its laughter echoing eerily. A twisted, skeletal specter slithers from a golden angel ornament, its bony fingers scraping the walls. Each spirit exhibits unique, terrifying behavior, targeting the family members in different ways. Chapter 5. The Truth About the Ornaments. Max, a history buff, researches the ornaments and discovers their origin. They were created by a mysterious toymaker who dabbled in the occult. Eleanor had acquired them decades ago but never used them, knowing they were cursed. The spirits are souls trapped by the toymaker, each one bound to the ornament they inhabit. Midnight on Christmas Eve is the only time they can escape their confinement. Chapter 6. The Haunting Intensifies. The spirits grow bolder as the clock approaches midnight. The shadowy figure stretches across the walls, separating the family and isolating them in different rooms. The childlike ghost taunts Lily, playing hide-and-seek in the darkened house. The skeletal specter chases Emma and David, its bony fingers scratching at their backs. Lily remembers the shimmering blue globe and realizes it was the first ornament to break. She suspects it holds the key to stopping the haunting. Chapter 7. A Desperate Plan. Reunited in the attic, Max finds an old journal belonging to Eleanor. The journal reveals a ritual to banish the spirits, but it requires the family to confront the ghosts and place the broken ornaments back onto the tree. Emma is hesitant, fearing for her children's safety, but David insists it's the only way. Chapter 8. Confronting the spirits. The family fights to retrieve the broken ornaments. Max outsmarts the shadowy figure, using a flashlight to force it back into its ornament. Lily faces the childlike ghost in a tense game of cat and mouse, finally trapping it with an old music box. Emma and David work together to subdue the skeletal spectre, using Eleanor's journal to chant a binding spell. As each spirit is recaptured, the ornaments reassemble themselves, glowing faintly. Chapter 9. The Final Spirit. The last spirit, the pale woman from the blue globe, reveals herself as the toymaker's first victim. She warns the family that the ritual isn't complete. The toymaker's soul still lingers within the tree's star topper. The tree begins to shake violently, and the star emits a blinding light. The family must destroy the topper to break the curse permanently. Chapter 10. Breaking the Curse. In a climactic showdown, the family battles the toymaker's spirit, which manifests as a monstrous, shadowy figure. Using the journal and their combined strength, they shatter the star topper, unleashing a final burst of light that banishes the toymaker and the spirits for good. The house returns to normal, and the family collapses in relief. The ornaments, now dull and lifeless, crumble into dust. Epilogue. A new tradition. On Christmas morning, the family gathers around a simpler, undecorated tree. Though the night was harrowing, it brought them closer together. As they exchange gifts, Lily finds a small, blue shard from the broken globe under the tree. She pockets it, feeling a faint warmth, and decides to keep it as a reminder of the night they overcame the festive phantoms. The Christmas beast beneath the ice. When an unseasonably warm winter causes the frozen surface of Crystal Lake to crack open, a sleeping, ancient creature awakens from its icy prison. The beast begins terrorizing the nearby lakeside village on Christmas Eve, leaving the townspeople to band together in a desperate attempt to survive the night. Chapter 1. The Unnatural Thaw. The story opens in the picturesque town of Frost Hollow, nestled beside Crystal Lake. The villagers are preparing for their annual Christmas Eve festival, despite the strangely warm weather melting the lake's icy surface. Fisherman Hank McAllister ventures onto the thinning ice in search of his traps, but disappears when the ice gives way. His screams echo across the lake, but when the rescue team arrives, they find only jagged ice shards and blood-stained snow. Chapter 2. A Warning from the Past. Mayor Evelyn Clark dismisses Hank's disappearance as an accident, assuring the townsfolk that the festival will proceed as planned. However, local historian Margaret Tisdale recalls a chilling legend about the lake. She warns that every few centuries, the ice cracks open to release the Yule Leviathan, a monstrous creature said to feed on those who disturb its slumber. Her warnings are ignored, but Margaret begins digging into Frost Hollow's archives for answers. Chapter 3. The First Sighting. Teenagers Ellie and Jake, seeking adventure, venture to the lake that evening to skate on the remaining ice. As they glide across the surface, an enormous shadow passes beneath them. The ice shatters, and a massive, clawed hand emerges, pulling Jake into the freezing water. Ellie escapes, screaming about the creature, but no one believes her, until the festival lights flicker, and a monstrous roar echoes through the village. Chapter 4. The Beast Unleashed. The creature, a towering, reptilian monstrosity with icy scales and glowing blue eyes, emerges from the lake, dragging itself onto shore. It begins wreaking havoc, toppling decorations, and destroying buildings as it searches for food. The villagers flee to the church, seeking refuge. Margaret arrives with an ancient journal, revealing that the beast was trapped centuries ago by a ritual involving the lake's icy heart, a mysterious artifact hidden beneath the frozen surface. Chapter 5. A Desperate Plan. Margaret explains that the only way to stop the beast is to lure it back onto the ice and seal it with the artifact. Ellie volunteers to help, determined to avenge Jake. With the help of the town blacksmith, they fashion makeshift weapons and plan a trap to drive the creature back to the lake. Chapter 6. The Beast Strikes Again. The beast continues its rampage, attacking a group of villagers who stayed behind to defend their homes. The survivors regroup at the church, where tensions run high. Some blame Margaret for stirring up old legends, while others look to Mayor Clark for leadership. Meanwhile, Ellie and a small team set out to find the artifact, venturing into the caves beneath the lake. Chapter 7: Into the Ice Caves. Ellie's team discovers a network of icy tunnels beneath the lake, filled with frozen skeletons, victims of the beast from centuries past. They find the artifact, a glowing shard of ice pulsing with unnatural energy, but retrieving it awakens smaller, snake-like creatures that serve the beast. The team narrowly escapes the caves, returning to the village just as the beast prepares to attack the church. Chapter 8: The Final Stand. With the artifact in hand, the villagers execute their plan. They use fireworks from the festival to lure the beast back onto the frozen lake. Ellie confronts the monster, using the artifact to weaken it. As the beast roars in fury, the ice beneath it begins to crack. Ellie throws the artifact into the lake, and a massive explosion of light and ice pulls the creature back into the depths. Chapter 9: Sacrifice and Survival. The lake refreezes, trapping the beast once more. However, the victory comes at a cost. Ellie, standing too close to the artifact, is dragged beneath the ice alongside the creature. The village mourns her loss but vows to honor her bravery by never disturbing the lake again. Epilogue: The Frozen Warning. Years later, a new generation of villagers celebrates Christmas Eve by the lake, now marked with a warning sign. Beneath the frozen surface, faint, glowing blue eyes flicker open, hinting that the Yule Leviathan is not gone forever. The Candy Cane Killer. A small town is terrorized by a mysterious serial killer who leaves candy canes at the scene of each crime. These seemingly innocent treats harbor the trapped souls of the victims, and anyone who consumes them begins to experience horrifying visions. As the body count rises, a young journalist and a grieving detective must unravel the killer's dark secret before they become the next victims. Chapter 1: Sweet Beginnings. The story opens in the sleepy town of Hollybrook during the festive holiday season. Reporter Lily Matthews is covering a local Christmas fair when news breaks of a brutal murder. At the crime scene, Detective Max Carter finds an ornate candy cane placed carefully in the victim's hand. Chapter 2: The Candy's Curse. When the candy cane is sent for forensic analysis, a technician who accidentally tastes it begins convulsing and muttering cryptic phrases about a dark figure in the snow. Meanwhile, Lily begins investigating the history of similar murders in other towns. Chapter 3: A Killer's Pattern. Max and Lily discover that similar murders have occurred every holiday season for the past decade, each in a different town, with the killer leaving identical candy canes as a calling card. Strange symbols etched into the candies point to an ominous ritual. Chapter 4: Voices of the Victims. Lily interviews the families of the previous victims and uncovers a chilling connection. Each victim had a secret they were desperate to hide. The candy canes seem to imprison their souls, acting as vessels for their anguish. Max, haunted by the unsolved murder of his own wife years ago, starts seeing her face in his dreams, calling to him through the same cryptic symbols. Chapter 5: The Legend of Saint Nicholas' Shadow. An elderly librarian reveals an ancient legend about Craven, the shadow of Saint Nicholas, a being who punishes sinners during the holidays. According to the myth, Craven uses cursed candy canes to harvest the souls of the guilty. Lily suspects the killer is mimicking the legend or perhaps believes they are Craven reincarnated. Chapter 6: A Twisted Trail. Max and Lily follow the killer's trail to a remote candy factory that shut down years ago after a series of strange disappearances. Inside, they find a chilling workshop filled with candy canes and jars of glowing mist, trapped souls. The pair narrowly escape an attack by the killer, who emerges from the shadows wearing a crimson hood and carrying a hooked staff resembling a candy cane. Chapter 7: Personal Stakes. Lily discovers that her estranged brother is missing, and a candy cane is found on his doorstep. Meanwhile, Max receives a box containing a candy cane and a photo of his late wife. The killer is targeting them directly, forcing them to confront their own buried secrets. Chapter 8: The Killer Unmasked. Lily and Max uncover the killer's identity, a reclusive candlemaker who disappeared years ago after being accused of poisoning children. They confront him in his hidden lair beneath the old factory, where he reveals his belief that he is Craven, purging the unworthy during the holiday season. Chapter 9: The Final Confrontation. The killer traps Lily and Max in a labyrinth of mirrors and candy-filled corridors. They must face their worst fears, manifested by the cursed candy canes. Max sees visions of his wife accusing him of failing her, while Lily relives her childhood trauma of abandoning her brother. Using their newfound resolve, they manage to destroy the jars of souls, weakening the killer. Chapter 10: A Bitter Victory. In a climactic battle, Max sacrifices himself to stop the killer, shattering the cursed staff and releasing the remaining souls. The killer disintegrates into a swirl of snow and ash, leaving behind a single cracked candy cane. Lily vows to honor Max's memory by ensuring no one forgets the horrors that unfolded. But as she walks away, she hears faint whispers from the broken candy cane, hinting that the curse may not be over. The Forgotten Gifts. When a mysterious gift delivery service begins leaving beautifully wrapped presents on the doorstep of the Bennett family, they are initially delighted. But each gift reveals a dark, forgotten memory from their past that they had tried to bury. As the gifts grow more sinister, the family realizes they must confront their secrets before the final package arrives, one that could tear them apart forever. Chapter 1: A Gift on the Doorstep. The story begins on Christmas Eve, with the Bennett family enjoying their holiday traditions. Late in the evening, a beautifully wrapped gift appears on their doorstep. Inside is a small, dusty music box that plays a hauntingly familiar tune, triggering unease in Margaret, the mother. Chapter 2: The Music Box Memory. Margaret recalls the music box belonging to her sister, who disappeared when they were children. As she wins the box, fragmented memories return, revealing Margaret might have been involved in her sister's disappearance. Meanwhile, another gift appears on the porch, addressed to her teenage son, Ethan. Chapter 3: Ethan's Secret. Ethan's package contains a pair of old sneakers stained with mud. He becomes visibly shaken and locks himself in his room. His parents demand an explanation, but he denies knowing anything. Flashbacks show Ethan's involvement in a tragic accident involving a neighborhood boy. Chapter 4: The Family's Fractures. More gifts arrive, each one targeting a different family member. Margaret's husband, David, receives a shattered pocket watch, forcing him to recall his estranged relationship with his late father. Their youngest daughter, Emily, unwraps a doll with glassy, lifeless eyes that she swears belonged to her imaginary friend from childhood. Tensions rise as the Bennetts begin to accuse one another of harboring dark secrets. Chapter 5: The Delivery Service. Margaret attempts to track down the mysterious delivery service but finds no record of their existence. A phone call to the listed customer service number connects her to a cryptic voice that says, all debts must be paid before the final gift. Chapter 6: The Visitor in the Night. Ethan notices shadowy figures watching the house from the woods. That night, he hears someone whispering his name and finds another gift waiting outside his window. Inside is a blood-stained bicycle bell, plunging him into guilt-ridden memories of the boy from the accident. Chapter 7: The Price of Silence. Margaret pieces together that each gift represents a moment when a family member caused harm to someone else. The music box reminds her of how she ignored her sister's cries for help. The sneakers and bell reveal Ethan's role in covering up his accident. David's pocket watch symbolizes his neglect of his father, and Emily's doll hints at a tragic imaginary friend who may not have been imaginary at all. Chapter 8: The Final Gift. On Christmas morning, a massive package is delivered. The box contains an ornate mirror that reflects not their present selves, but twisted versions of them reliving their darkest moments. The reflection of Margaret's sister reaches out from the glass, pulling her in. The family must band together to face their guilt, confessing their sins to one another. Only by admitting the truth can they begin to shatter the mirror's hold. Chapter 9: A Debt Paid in Full. As the mirror shatters, the souls trapped within are released, including the victims tied to the Bennett's actions. Each family member is left physically and emotionally scarred but alive. A final letter from the delivery service appears, stating, debts are settled, but memories linger forever. Chapter 10: Moving Forward. Months later, the Bennetts struggle to rebuild their lives, burdened by the truths they can no longer ignore. Margaret volunteers at a missing persons charity, David reconnects with his family, and Ethan dedicates himself to helping others. However, on the following Christmas Eve, another package arrives, this time for their neighbors. The Silent Santa. When a new Santa Claus arrives at the local department store, customers are unnerved by his eerie silence and unblinking stare. Children who sit on his lap begin to experience vivid nightmares that come to life in horrifying ways. As the curse spreads, a young employee discovers that Silent Santa is far from human, and that breaking his curse will require a sacrifice. Chapter 1. A Santa Like No Other. The holiday season is in full swing at Brighton Mall, with families lining up for pictures with Santa. However, this year's Santa is unusual. He never speaks, only nods and stares. Despite the unease, his lifelike costume and piercing gaze attract even more visitors. Mall employee Cassie notices strange occurrences after children visit Santa. One child dreams of a fire, and their home catches ablaze the next day. Chapter 2. The First Curse. Cass's younger brother, Liam, insists on meeting Santa. That night, he has a terrifying dream of being chased by shadowy figures. The next day, he awakens with unexplained claw marks on his arms. Cassie begins to investigate Silent Santa, but her co-workers dismiss her concerns as holiday stress. Chapter 3. The Eyes That Haunt. Cassie hears rumors from parents about children suffering from recurring nightmares after visiting Santa. She learns of a girl who dreamed of drowning and was later found unconscious in her bathtub. Determined to uncover the truth, Cassie reviews security footage of Santa's interactions and notices a disturbing pattern. His gaze lingers far too long on each visitor. Chapter 4. Silent Nights. Cassie decides to confront Santa directly, but when she approaches him after hours, he remains silent, his expression unreadable. She finds herself unable to look away from his eyes, which seem to shimmer unnaturally. That night, Cassie dreams of being trapped in a snowstorm, her breath freezing in her lungs. The dream feels so real that she wakes up coughing ice crystals. Chapter 5. The Santa's Origin. Cass's research leads her to the mall's archives, where she discovers a chilling story. Decades ago, a man dressed as Santa vanished from the same mall during a blizzard. His body was never found, and some believe his spirit lingers, seeking revenge for the neglect that led to his death. Chapter 6. Breaking the Gaze. Cassie enlists the help of her co-worker, Max, who has a knack for urban legends. Together, they devise a plan to avoid Santa's gaze while confronting him. However, Silent Santa begins moving unnaturally, appearing in places he shouldn't be, like Cass's home. Chapter 7. The Cursed Dreams. Cassie dreams of her family disappearing one by one. When she wakes, she finds Liam missing. Silent Santa's curse is escalating, pulling victims into his world of nightmares. Desperate, Cassie breaks into Santa's photo booth to find clues, but only uncovers more questions, including a cryptic phrase carved into the chair: "The silence must be broken." Chapter 8. The Ritual of Release. Max discovers that the only way to break the curse is to make Silent Santa speak. The curse traps him in his silence, and his victims' fears manifest as punishment. Cassie and Max plan a confrontation during the mall's closing hours, hoping to force him to talk by reciting his name, which they uncover through records: Nicholas Frost. Chapter 9. The Final Confrontation. As the mall closes, Silent Santa begins stalking Cassie and Max through the dimly lit corridors. They chant his name, but his silence persists. Using a child's wish letter found near his chair, Cassie appeals to his humanity, reminding him of the joy he once brought. At last, Santa whispers a single word: free. Chapter 10. After the Silence. The curse lifts, and Silent Santa vanishes, leaving only his empty suit behind. Liam and the other victims are found safe, though shaken. Cassie reflects on how easily holiday cheer can hide something sinister. The following year, a new Santa arrives at the mall, a jolly, talkative man. But late one night, Cassie hears the faint echo of Silent Santa's haunting gaze in her dreams. The Blizzard Beast. When a record-breaking snowstorm isolates the town of White Pines, residents discover they're not alone. Hidden within the relentless blizzard is a colossal, frost-covered creature stalking anyone who dares to step outside. As the storm intensifies, a group of survivors must uncover the beast's origin and find a way to stop it before the town is buried, both by snow and by fear. Chapter 1. The Snowfall Begins. The residents of White Pines are preparing for a severe snowstorm, but the forecasted snowfall turns out to be much worse than expected. By nightfall, the streets are buried, and the power goes out. Teenager Elena and her younger brother Sam watch from their window as a shadowy figure lumbers through the whiteout. Sam thinks it's just a large animal, but Elena feels a chilling dread. Chapter 2: First Blood. The next morning, the snowstorm rages on, and a local plow driver fails to return after heading out to clear the roads. His abandoned truck is found with claw marks gouged into the metal. The townspeople grow uneasy, dismissing the idea of a wild animal as impossible given the marks and the sheer size of the tracks leading away from the scene. Chapter 3: Whispers in the Blizzard. Elena ventures outside to check on a neighbor, finding the snow eerily quiet. Suddenly, she hears a deep, resonant growl carried on the wind. Panicking, she runs back home, but not before catching a glimpse of massive footprints trailing behind her. At the town's diner, Sheriff Cooper gathers a group of volunteers to search for the missing plow driver. They venture into the storm but are ambushed by something enormous, barely visible through the snow. Only one of them escapes, incoherently muttering about glowing eyes and jagged ice-covered claws. Chapter 4: The Beast Revealed. Sam spots the creature from the attic window. It stands over 10 feet tall, its body made of compacted snow and ice, with glowing blue eyes and icicles dangling like fangs. When Elena tries to call the sheriff, the phone lines are down, and the snowstorm is too thick to risk driving. Through old local legends, Elena learns of a blizzard beast, a creature said to appear during the harshest winters to claim sacrifices. Most dismiss it as folklore, but the descriptions match what they're seeing. Chapter 5: Trapped. The storm worsens, burying the town under several feet of snow. The few remaining residents shelter together at the high school gym. The beast circles the building, its growls vibrating through the walls. It seems to be waiting for them to make a mistake and venture outside. When a man sneaks out to retrieve his generator, the beast strikes, dragging him into the storm. His screams echo until they abruptly stop. Chapter 6: The Old-Timer's Warning. An elderly resident, Mr. Hargrove, reveals he's seen the blizzard beast before during his childhood. He recalls how his father and others drove the creature away by creating fire traps and using a ceremonial ice axe from the town's museum, a relic said to ward off the winter demon. Elena and Sam decide to recover the axe, despite the risk. Chapter 7: A Desperate Plan. Elena, Sam, and Sheriff Cooper lead a small group to the museum, navigating through the blizzard with makeshift torches. Along the way, they're stalked by the beast, which takes down one of their group in a brutal attack. Inside the museum, they find the ice axe, along with ancient carvings describing how the beast can only be defeated during a brief moment when the snowstorm pauses, an event marked by the storm's eye. Chapter 8: The Eye of the Storm. The group returns to the school and prepares their trap. Using gasoline and flares, they set up a perimeter to lure the beast into a kill zone. As the storm momentarily calms, they spot the beast standing in the clearing, its icy body shimmering menacingly in the moonlight. Chapter 9: The Final Battle. The beast charges the group, smashing through their defenses. Sheriff Cooper uses the flares to drive it back, while Elena wields the ceremonial ice axe. In a climactic moment, she strikes the beast's core, a glowing orb of ice at its chest, shattering it into shards. The creature collapses into a pile of snow, and the storm abruptly ceases. Chapter 10: After the Storm. As the snow begins to melt, the townspeople emerge from their homes, grateful to be alive. The remaining survivors quietly dismantle the traps, and the axe is returned to the museum. Elena and Sam reflect on the harrowing experience, vowing to preserve the legend so others might be prepared if the beast ever returns. The Singing Stockings. When a family hangs stockings on their fireplace for Christmas, they awaken an ancient curse. Each night, the stockings sing haunting lullabies that only children can hear, drawing them closer to the fire. As the songs grow more sinister, the family races to uncover the origins of the cursed stockings before the flames claim their youngest. Chapter 1: Deck the Halls. The Moore family, parents Jack and Emily, and their children Lily, 8, and Ben, 12, celebrate their first Christmas in an old Victorian house inherited from Jack's late aunt. While unpacking decorations, they find a set of ornate, velvet stockings embroidered with golden thread. Despite Emily's unease, Jack insists on hanging them over the fireplace. That night, Lily wakes up to the faint sound of singing. Following the tune, she sleepwalks toward the fireplace, but Ben catches her just in time. She insists she heard pretty music, but no one else heard it. Chapter 2: A Lullaby in the Dark. The next night, the stockings sing again. This time, Ben hears it too. The song, soft and sweet at first, grows more melancholic, with lyrics urging listeners to step closer to the warmth. Ben notices the fireplace's embers glow brighter as the stockings sway slightly, as if alive. Frightened, Ben tells his parents, but they dismiss it as an overactive imagination. That same night, Lily is found dangerously close to the fire, her eyes wide and unblinking. Chapter 3: The Fire's Call. Emily begins to worry after noticing burn marks on the edges of the stockings. Jack dismisses her concerns, chalking it up to sparks from the fire. Meanwhile, Ben researches the house's history and learns that Jack's aunt wasn't the original owner. The house once belonged to a toymaker whose children died in a tragic fire decades ago. The toymaker was rumored to have cursed Christmas decorations in his grief, particularly stockings, which he claimed stole his children. Chapter 4: The Song Spreads. The stockings' songs grow louder and more alluring, their lyrics now pleading, "Join us in the fire's embrace." Lily becomes increasingly entranced, humming the tune during the day and drawing pictures of flames and figures inside them. Ben discovers an old journal belonging to Jack's aunt. It warns that the stockings are cursed and should never be hung on a hearth. The curse is said to grow stronger the closer it gets to Christmas Eve. Chapter 5: Flames in the Night. On December 22nd, the stockings song reaches the parents. Jack dreams of walking into a roaring fire while Emily hears whispers urging her to bring Lily to the flames. Both wake up in a cold sweat, realizing the curse affects adults too. When Jack tries to remove the stockings, they resist, their fabric burning his hands. The family watches in horror as the stockings sway violently, singing louder than ever. Chapter 6: The Curse Revealed. Ben finds a final entry in the journal, describing how the toymaker created the stockings using fabric from his children's clothing, binding their souls inside. The curse demands a child's life every Christmas to feed the fire and keep the souls bound. Desperate, Emily calls a local historian, Mrs. Hargrove, who confirms the legend and suggests a way to break the curse: burn the stockings before Christmas Eve without lighting the fireplace, or risk losing Lily forever. Chapter 7: A Fiery Resistance. On December 23rd, the family gathers kindling outside, planning to destroy the stockings in a backyard fire pit. As they try to remove the stockings, the fireplace bursts into flames, and the house fills with choking smoke. The stockings refuse to budge, their golden embroidery glowing ominously. The family retreats, vowing to try again the next day. Chapter 8: Christmas Eve Countdown. The stockings song becomes unbearable, echoing through the entire house. The lyrics are now a sinister chant, promising salvation for the chosen child and destruction for the rest. Lily becomes fully possessed, staring at the fire with a vacant smile. Emily and Ben devise a plan to douse the fireplace with holy water and use protective symbols to weaken the stocking's grip. Jack, still skeptical but shaken, agrees to help. Chapter 9: The Final Confrontation. As midnight approaches on Christmas Eve, the family fights to break the curse. Ben and Jack use holy water and salt to suppress the flames, while Emily prays and recites protective verses. The stockings writhe violently, their singing turning into anguished screams. In a final act of bravery, Ben grabs the stockings with fireproof gloves and throws them into the fire pit outside. The cursed flames erupt one last time before extinguishing. Chapter 10: A Silent Night. The house falls silent, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. The family gathers outside, watching the smoldering remains of the stockings. For the first time in days, Lily smiles, free from the curse's grip. The Morse spend Christmas Day together, grateful for their lives and vowing never to hang stockings again. Jack locks away the journal and the remaining decorations from the attic, ensuring the curse is never unleashed again. The Yule Time Traveler. When the Harper family discovers a beautifully crafted antique clock in their attic, they are enchanted by its festive decorations and intricate mechanism. But when the clock is wound, they are hurled into Christmases from centuries past, each one darker than the last. To return to their own time, they must solve the mysteries of these Christmases and survive the horrors lurking in them. Chapter 1: The Clock in the Attic. The Harper family, parents Sarah and James, and their teenage children Claire and Max, move into an old colonial home just before Christmas. While exploring the attic, Max discovers an ornate clock adorned with festive carvings of holly, bells, and reindeer. The clock's brass faceplate bears the cryptic inscription, "Turn the key to see the seasons of Christmas eternal." Despite its dusty appearance, the clock's hands begin ticking the moment Max wins it. Chapter 2: Christmas, 1872. The family is startled when the clock chimes 12, and the room transforms into a Victorian parlor filled with garlands, candles, and a roaring fire. Outside, gaslit streets are bustling with careless and snow-covered horse-drawn carriages. The Harpers are charmed at first, but the enchantment turns sinister when they meet a spectral family dressed in funeral attire. The ghosts warn them, "You must find the clock's key before the final chime, or you will remain here forever." Chapter 3: Shadows in the Snow. Desperate to return home, the Harpers search the Victorian house for the clock's key. Their exploration reveals dark secrets about the original owners, a family plagued by betrayal and murder on Christmas Eve. The Harpers soon realize they are not alone. Shadowy figures with hollow eyes stalk them through the snow-draped streets. As the clock begins to chime again, they narrowly escape, finding themselves back in their own attic, but only briefly. Chapter 4: Christmas, 1347. The next time Max accidentally wins the clock, the family is thrown into the medieval era, landing in a plague-ridden village. The villagers, desperate and paranoid, mistake the Harpers for harbingers of doom. An ominous figure in a hooded cloak, a timekeeper, appears, warning them that their presence in the timeline disrupts the balance of history. To leave, they must uncover the source of the clock's power while evading the plague and the villagers' torches. Chapter 5: The Christmas Feast of 1642. The Harpers find themselves at a grand castle during a lavish Christmas banquet. The food, music, and merriment seem to promise respite from the horrors they faced. But the cheerful facade crumbles when they learn the feast is a trap. Guests who indulge too much are consumed, literally, by the enchanted feast. The family must resist the temptations and uncover the clock's hidden key in the castle before becoming permanent additions to the ghostly guest list. Chapter 6: The Clock's Secret. After surviving the banquet, the family finds an old book in the castle's library. It reveals that the clock was crafted by a mysterious toymaker who was cursed for meddling with time. The book warns of the final Christmas, a horrific event that no traveler has ever survived. The Harpers realize that the clock is pulling them toward this ultimate Christmas, and if they cannot break the curse, they will be trapped there forever. Chapter 7: Christmas, 1914. The Harpers land in the trenches of World War I on Christmas Eve, during the famous Christmas truce. Soldiers on both sides emerge from the trenches to exchange gifts and songs, creating a rare moment of peace. However, supernatural forces twist the timeline, reviving the dead soldiers as grotesque, spectral warriors who begin hunting the living. The family must navigate the war-torn landscape and avoid becoming casualties of the cursed truce. Chapter 8: The Final Christmas. The clock's chime grows louder and more relentless, pulling the family into the final Christmas, a time beyond time. Here, they find themselves in a desolate, icy wasteland where the timekeeper rules as a monstrous figure of frost and shadow. The timekeeper reveals his true intent. The clock is his prison, and he needs the family's souls to finally break free. To escape, the Harpers must destroy the clock, but doing so will trap them in this realm forever. Chapter 9: Sacrifice and Redemption. In a desperate gamble, Sarah offers herself to the timekeeper in exchange for her children's safety. As the clock begins to shatter, Claire and Max discover they can reverse the curse by using their own holiday memories to wind time backward. With each memory, the icy wasteland melts, and the family finds themselves closer to home. But the timekeeper grows more powerful with each passing second, and the family must work together to banish him before the clock strikes 12. Chapter 10: home for Christmas. The Harpers awaken in their attic, the clock reduced to ash. Although relieved to be home, they carry the scars of their journey, both physical and emotional. On Christmas morning, the family gathers around the tree, cherishing their time together like never before. But in the corner of the room, unnoticed by all, a single gear from the clock begins to tick. The Tainted Eggnog. Chapter 1. The Holiday Party. It was a chilly Christmas Eve as snow dusted the streets of Pine Hollow. The annual community holiday party was in full swing at the town hall. Residents laughed, danced, and exchanged gifts in the warm glow of twinkling lights. The centerpiece of the refreshment table was a large crystal bowl filled with creamy eggnog. No one knew who had brought it, but its rich aroma was too tempting to resist. Guests eagerly filled their cups, toasting to the season's cheer. As the clock struck 8 p.m., the first screams echoed through the hall. Chapter 2. The First Vision. Susan, the town florist, stood frozen in the middle of the room, her face pale as snow. Her cup of eggnog shattered on the floor. "It's me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I saw myself drowning. I could feel the water filling my lungs." Others dismissed her outburst as a joke or a result of too much spiked eggnog. But minutes later, Thomas, the local baker, clutched his head and collapsed. "Fire," he gasped, eyes wide with terror. "I burned alive." One by one, the partygoers who drank the eggnog began experiencing vivid and horrifying visions of their own deaths. Chapter 3. The Eggnog's Curse. Panic erupted as people realized the visions weren't random, they were personal and grotesquely detailed. Even those who laughed it off at first were silenced when their turn came. Margaret, the mayor's wife, accused the bartender of spiking the drink. Others wondered if it was a prank gone wrong. But the strange part was this: those who didn't drink the eggnog were unaffected. The partygoers demanded answers. Who had brought the eggnog? Chapter 4. A Mysterious Arrival. After some investigation, the truth emerged. No one had seen the eggnog being delivered. It wasn't on the catering menu, and the caterers swore it hadn't been prepared in their kitchen. An older man named Arthur, the town historian, recalled a chilling tale. Decades ago, a batch of poisoned eggnog had been served at a Christmas Eve party in the same hall. The guests had died horrible deaths, and the incident had been blamed on a spurned lover. The group began to wonder, was the eggnog cursed? Chapter 5. A Grim Test. To confirm their fears, the guests decided to test the eggnog. A brave volunteer, Eddie, took a sip despite everyone's protests. Moments later, he dropped his cup. Eddie described his vision in vivid detail. He was trapped in an abandoned building as its walls crumbled around him. The group listened in horror as he recounted the suffocating weight of the rubble. Something supernatural was clearly at work. But who, or what, had cursed the eggnog? Chapter 6. The Search for the Culprit. The group split up to investigate. Some searched the hall for any signs of who might have delivered the mysterious drink, while others combed through the records Arthur had brought. A shocking discovery came from Arthur's documents. The original poisoning was not the work of a jealous lover. The town had blamed the wrong person. The true culprit had never been caught and was rumored to have cursed the town out of spite before their death. Was this the curse coming to fruition? Chapter 7. The Visions Turn Real. As the night wore on, the visions began to take a sinister turn. Those who had already experienced their fates started seeing shadowy figures lurking in the corners of the hall. Thomas, the baker, screamed when he saw flames flickering along the walls, though no one else could see them. Moments later, he collapsed and died, his body scorched as if burned alive. The group realized with horror that the visions were not mere illusions, they were warnings. Chapter 8. The Eggnog's Creator. Desperate for answers, the group turned to Anna, the town's self-proclaimed medium. She conducted a séance to reach the spirit responsible for the cursed eggnog. Through Anna, a vengeful voice revealed itself. The spirit of Evelyn Carver, the wrongly accused woman from decades ago, had cursed the eggnog as a way to expose the town's dark past. She wanted those who ignored the truth to suffer. "Confess your sins," the spirit demanded. "Only then will I let you live." Chapter 9. The Town's Dark Secret. Arthur confessed first. He revealed that his grandfather had been part of the mob that falsely accused Evelyn. One by one, other townsfolk began admitting their families' roles in the tragedy, from lies to covering up evidence. As they confessed, the eggnog's power seemed to weaken. The shadowy figures faded, and the visions stopped for those who had yet to drink. But Evelyn's spirit wasn't satisfied. "One must pay," she declared. Chapter 10: The Final Sacrifice. Realizing what needed to be done, Anna volunteered to offer herself. She argued that as the medium, she had summoned Evelyn and should be the one to end the curse. Evelyn's ghost appeared, her expression unreadable. Anna drank the remaining eggnog, and the group watched in silence as she collapsed. Her final words were a plea for Evelyn to let the others go. The spirit vanished, and the cursed eggnog turned to ash. The remaining partygoers left the hall, forever changed. But as they walked into the snow, a chilling sound echoed from the town hall, the faint clinking of a ladle in a punch bowl. The Midnight Blizzard. Chapter 1: The First Flake. It began as an unseasonal snowfall in the town of Frosthaven. By mid-afternoon, the flakes grew heavier, and the skies turned an ominous grey. Townsfolk were charmed at first. After all, a white Christmas seemed magical. But by evening, the snow turned relentless, trapping cars, blanketing rooftops, and silencing the usual winter cheer. Strange howls echoed through the night, carried by icy winds, and those who ventured outside didn't return. Chapter 2: Stranded. By morning, Frosthaven was entirely cut off. Roads disappeared under thick drifts, and phone lines and electricity were down. Families huddled in their homes, trying to stay warm as the temperature plummeted. At the town's diner, a group of stranded residents gathered for warmth and food. Among them was Jack, a former park ranger, and Claire, a resourceful high school teacher. When someone suggested braving the storm to find help, Jack shook his head. "This isn't a normal blizzard," he muttered. Chapter 3: Tracks in the Snow. The first sign of trouble came when a rescue team attempted to leave town. They barely made it a block before disappearing into the swirling white. Hours later, Jack and Claire spotted strange tracks near the diner, long, clawed footprints leading toward the missing team's last known location. Claire examined the prints and whispered, "Whatever made these isn't human." Chapter 4: The Creatures Appear. That night, the town learned the truth. As darkness fell, shapes began moving in the snow, silent, towering figures with glistening, frost-covered skin and glowing blue eyes. They prowled the streets, scratching at windows and doors, searching for prey. One family who tried to flee screamed as the creatures dragged them into the blizzard. Their cries were quickly swallowed by the storm. Chapter 5: The Rules of Survival. Jack took charge, rallying the survivors at the diner. "Stay inside, keep quiet, and block every door and window," he instructed. "They hunt by sound and movement." The group worked together to fortify their shelter, using anything they could find. Meanwhile, Claire pieced together clues from local folklore. She remembered hearing tales of the Uraith, ancient winter spirits said to awaken during storms to punish the reckless. Chapter 6: The Missing Child. Panic struck when little Sophie, a 7-year-old girl, disappeared from the diner. Her mother, hysterical, claimed she had only stepped away for a moment. Tracks leading out into the snow suggested Sophie had been lured by something, or someone. Against his own advice, Jack led a small team to search for her. They encountered one of the creatures up close, its icy breath freezing the air around it. The group narrowly escaped, but the realization was clear: the creatures could mimic voices, calling people outside. Chapter 7: The Frozen Church. While searching for supplies, Claire and a few others stumbled upon the town's church, eerily untouched by the storm. Inside, they found dozens of townsfolk frozen solid, their faces twisted in terror. In the center of the room stood an altar of ice, pulsing with a faint blue glow. Claire realized the storm wasn't natural, it was being summoned. Chapter 8: The Truth Beneath the Snow. Returning to the diner, Claire shared her discovery. The group debated their next move. Some wanted to stay hidden, while others believed the source of the storm needed to be destroyed. Jack sided with Claire. "If we don't stop this, the storm will spread. There won't be a Frosthaven left." The group armed themselves with whatever they could find: kitchen knives, propane torches, and flares. Chapter 9. The Final Stand. The survivors fought their way to the church through a gauntlet of creatures. One by one, they were picked off by the relentless predators, their screams lost in the storm. Inside the church, Jack and Claire confronted the glowing ice altar. As Claire recited an ancient prayer she had found in a folklore book, Jack smashed the altar with a makeshift sledgehammer. The storm howled louder, and the creatures shrieked in unison before vanishing into the snow. The altar shattered, releasing a burst of light that drove the storm away. Chapter 10. The Morning After. By dawn, the blizzard had cleared, leaving the town in ruins. Survivors emerged from their homes, shaken but alive. Jack and Claire stood together in the church's ruins, staring at the shattered remains of the altar. "It's over," Claire said, though her tone held little conviction. As they turned to leave, a faint, chilling howl echoed in the distance. The Snow Beast. Chapter 1. The Gathering Storm. The Whitman family, parents Richard and Sarah, and their teenage children, Emily and Jake, arrive at their remote winter cabin for a holiday retreat. Thick snowflakes fall as they unload supplies, and Richard reassures everyone that the forecasted storm will pass quickly. By nightfall, the storm intensifies, cutting off power and burying the cabin in silence. Emily peers out the frosted window, spotting an odd, human-like shape in the snow just beyond the tree line. She dismisses it as a trick of the light, or so she hopes. Chapter 2. The Tracks. The next morning, Jake notices deep tracks leading from the woods to the cabin's porch but finds no signs of an intruder. The tracks are massive, with claw-like impressions. As the family debates what could have made them, the storm grows fiercer, trapping them inside. The family's dog, Max, begins growling at the windows, his ears pinned back. When Richard steps outside to investigate, the snow seems to shift unnaturally, almost as if it's alive. Chapter 3. The First Encounter. That night, Sarah wakes to hear scratching at the cabin walls. Richard dismisses it as branches blown by the wind, but Emily isn't convinced. The truth reveals itself when Jake opens the door to let Max out. A towering figure, vaguely human in shape but made entirely of snow, stands at the edge of the porch. Its hollow eyes glow faintly blue, and its jagged mouth appears to grin. Jake slams the door as the creature lunges, its claw-like hands leaving deep gouges in the wood. Chapter 4. Legends of the Snow Beast. The next day, Emily discovers an old journal tucked away in the cabin's attic. The journal, belonging to a previous owner, details sightings of a creature known as the Snow Beast, a guardian of the wilderness, said to punish those who disturb its domain. The family begins piecing things together. Richard recalls accidentally breaking an ancient-looking totem while cutting firewood the previous day. The storm, the tracks, the beast, they're all connected. Chapter 5. Siege. The Snow Beast becomes more aggressive, circling the cabin and attacking any exposed area. It smashes through the barn, destroying their generator and leaving them in total darkness. The family fortifies the cabin, blocking windows and doors with furniture. Emily, resourceful and determined, devises a plan to distract the creature using flare guns she found in the attic. Chapter 6. The Beast's Power. That night, the family's defenses are tested. The Snow Beast proves more intelligent than they imagined, using the storm to obscure its movements. When Max barks at the back door, Sarah rushes to grab him but finds only a pile of snow where he stood moments ago. The family watches in horror as the Snow Beast drags Max's frozen form into the woods, its glowing eyes fixed on the cabin. Chapter 7. Fighting Back. Determined to survive, the family sets traps around the property. Jake rigs an old propane tank with a makeshift detonator, while Emily prepares Molotov cocktails from the cabin's liquor stash. That night, they lure the Snow Beast into a trap. The propane explosion wounds it, blowing off one of its arms, but the limb reforms almost instantly from the surrounding snow. "You can't kill snow," Emily whispers, terror sinking in. Chapter 8. The Weakness. Emily studies the journal for clues. She finds a passage mentioning fire as the Snow Beast's only vulnerability, but it must be a concentrated, sustained blaze to melt the creature entirely. The family devises a desperate plan: lure the creature into the old woodpile and ignite it. With the storm acting as the creature's ally, executing the plan will require perfect timing and coordination. Chapter 9: The Final Showdown. The snow beast attacks with relentless fury, smashing through one side of the cabin. The family flees into the storm, leading it toward the woodpile. Emily uses a flare gun to light the trap, creating an inferno that engulfs the creature. The snow beast thrashes and roars, its icy form collapsing under the heat. For a moment, the storm itself seems to scream in agony before dissipating entirely. Chapter 10: After the Storm. By morning, the sky is clear, and the world is blanketed in a pristine, undisturbed layer of snow. The Whitmans, battered but alive, begin the long trek back to civilization. As they leave, Emily glances back at the melted remains of the snow beast. In the snow, faint claw marks spell out a chilling warning: this land is ours. The Red Ribbon Ghost. Chapter 1: The Legend of the Ribbon. In the small, snow-covered town of Glenwick, a red ribbon tied around a towering oak tree in the forest has become a symbol of fear. Locals whisper that it marks the grave of a betrayed bride whose wrath curses anyone who disturbs it. Teenager Ellie, fascinated by local folklore, convinces her friends Jake and Jane to explore the woods and find the infamous ribbon for a school project. Despite warnings from the town's elders, they set out on a crisp December evening. Chapter 2: A Dare Gone Wrong. Ellie and her friends find the oak tree deep in the forest. The ribbon, vibrant and almost glowing in the moonlight, flutters despite the still air. Jake, always the skeptic, dares Ellie to untie it, calling the legend ridiculous. When Ellie hesitates, Jake impulsively pulls at the ribbon. As soon as it slips free, the forest becomes deathly silent, and the air turns icy. A faint wail echoes, and the ribbon vanishes into thin air. Chapter 3: The Haunting Begins. The trio flees the forest, but strange occurrences follow them. Jake wakes in the middle of the night to find a red ribbon tied tightly around his wrist, leaving a burning sensation. Ellie begins seeing a shadowy figure in her room at night, its face obscured by a veil. Meanwhile, Jane finds red ribbons appearing in her house, each one tied in intricate, impossible knots. She hears whispers that grow louder each time she tries to remove them. Chapter 4: The Spirit's Story. Desperate for answers, Ellie visits the town's oldest resident, Mrs. Havens, who reveals the tragic origin of the ribbon. Decades ago, a young woman named Margaret was to be married, but her fiancé betrayed her, leaving her at the altar. Distraught, she tied a red ribbon around the oak tree and hung herself. Margaret's spirit became bound to the ribbon, seeking vengeance on anyone who tampered with it. The only way to appease her is to uncover the truth of her betrayal and restore her honor. Chapter 5: Jake's Disappearance. One morning, Jake vanishes without a trace, leaving behind only the red ribbon he found on his wrist. Ellie and Jane are horrified when they notice faint footsteps leading into the forest, which end abruptly beneath the cursed oak tree. Determined to save their friend, the two girls decide to return to the woods. They arm themselves with candles, a journal for notes, and an old locket they found near the tree, believed to belong to Margaret. Chapter 6: The Spirit's Realm. When Ellie and Jane arrive at the oak tree, the air grows heavy, and the forest seems to shift. Suddenly, they are pulled into Margaret's realm, a shadowy mirror of the forest filled with distorted trees and glowing red ribbons. They find Jake trapped in a cocoon of ribbons, his face pale and his breathing shallow. The spirit of Margaret appears, her ghostly form floating, her veil hiding a face twisted with sorrow and rage. Chapter 7: Bargaining with the Ghost. Ellie pleads with Margaret to release Jake, but the spirit demands they uncover the truth about her betrayal. Margaret's fiancé, it turns out, had planned to elope with another woman, framing Margaret as unstable to save his reputation. Using the locket, Ellie and Jane offer proof of Margaret's innocence, promising to share her story with the town to restore her name. The spirit seems to soften, but the ribbons tighten around Jake as if testing their sincerity. Chapter 8: The Test of Loyalty. Margaret sets a trial for Ellie and Jane. They must navigate her realm and retrieve an item precious to her, a ribbon that represents her last shred of hope. The journey is perilous, with illusions of their worst fears trying to drive them apart. By relying on each other, the girls find the ribbon tied to a shadowy replica of the oak tree. As soon as they untie it, the forest begins to collapse around them. Chapter 9. Restoring Margaret's honor. Back in the real world, Ellie and Jane race to the town square, where they hang Margaret's ribbon on the church bell tower, a place she had always hoped to marry. They light candles and recite her story for the townspeople, revealing the truth about her tragic end. The ghost of Margaret appears one final time, her veil lifting to reveal a face no longer twisted by anger. She thanks Ellie and Jane, then disappears in a swirl of snow, the red ribbon falling gently to the ground. Chapter 10. Moving on. Jake recovers, though he remembers little of his time in Margaret's realm. The oak tree now stands bare, its red ribbon gone forever. The townspeople honor Margaret's memory with a small plaque, ensuring her story is never forgotten. As Christmas approaches, Ellie and Jane reflect on their harrowing journey and the bonds they strengthened. They vow to keep the spirit of compassion and truth alive in their town, ensuring no one else suffers a fate like Margaret's. The clock strikes Yule. Chapter 1. The clock arrives. The Peterson family, eager to celebrate Christmas in their newly inherited Victorian home, discovers a beautiful yet eerie grandfather clock tucked away in the attic. The clock, adorned with intricate carvings of winter scenes, seems to work perfectly despite its age. When young Tommy wins the clock on Christmas Eve, its chimes sound different, melancholic and heavy, as if announcing more than just the time. At midnight, the clock strikes 12, and an unnatural silence falls over the house. Chapter 2. A shift in time. The family wakes the next morning to find the world outside blanketed in an unnatural twilight, with the sun hidden behind a heavy grey sky. Time itself feels off, the clock shows midnight, yet hours seem to pass. Strange footprints in the snow surround the house, but they lead nowhere. The family begins to notice changes in their home, doors leading to unfamiliar rooms and Christmas decorations that seem to rearrange themselves. Chapter 3. The warning. As the family struggles to make sense of the bizarre changes, they discover an old journal hidden in the clock's base. It belonged to the previous owner, who writes of a curse tied to the clock and warns, when the clock strikes Yule, the hunters come. Before they can decipher more, the power goes out, plunging the house into darkness. In the flickering light of their candles, shadows seem to move on their own, and faint growls echo through the halls. Chapter 4. The first encounter. The family splits up to search for Tommy, who wanders off after hearing strange whispers calling his name. In the basement, his older sister, Rachel, encounters a monstrous being with elongated limbs and glowing eyes. Tommy is found unharmed but clutching a strange wooden figurine that he claims appeared in his room. The figurine bears a striking resemblance to the creature Rachel saw. Chapter 5. The curse's origin. Digging deeper into the journal, the Petersons learn that the clock was crafted centuries ago by a mad toymaker who dabbled in dark magic. He cursed the clock to summon the Yule hunters, monstrous beings who stalk their prey until the clock's chimes signal the end of Christmas Eve. The journal mentions a way to stop the hunters. The clock must be destroyed, but only at the precise moment of its midnight chime. Chapter 6. The hunters close in. As the family devises a plan, the Yule hunters begin their assault. The creatures seem to thrive in the shadows, and the family must keep their candles and lanterns lit at all times. The hunters are cunning, using the family's fears against them. Tommy hears his late grandmother's voice, while Rachel sees her worst childhood nightmares manifest. The family's resolve begins to crack. Chapter 7. A desperate escape. Realizing they need more information, the family discovers a hidden compartment in the clock containing another journal entry and an ornate key. The entry warns that the clock cannot be destroyed by ordinary means. The key must be used to unlock its core to expose the cursed mechanism. As the hunters grow bolder, the family fights to protect Tommy, who seems to be the hunters' main target. The house itself begins to twist and warp, trapping them in an endless loop of rooms. Chapter 8. The Midnight Countdown. With the hunters closing in, the Petersons prepare for their final stand. Rachel and her father break into the clock's core, revealing a glowing, pulsing orb surrounded by gears. Meanwhile, Tommy and his mother fend off the hunters, using light to drive them back temporarily. The clock begins its midnight chime, the sound reverberating through the house. Each strike sends waves of darkness, momentarily extinguishing their light sources. Chapter 9. Destroying the clock. As the clock strikes its 12th chime, Rachel plunges the key into the orb. A blinding light erupts, shattering the clock and sending the hunters into a deafening, otherworldly wail. The family is thrown to the ground as the house shakes violently. When the light fades, the Petersons find themselves back in their normal home. The clock is gone, replaced by a pile of ash and broken gears. Chapter 10. Moving forward. Though the family is safe, the experience leaves them shaken. They vow to never speak of the cursed clock to protect others. However, Tommy keeps one of the wooden figurines, claiming it's just a souvenir. As the Petersons enjoy a quiet Christmas morning, far away in another attic, the faint ticking of a grandfather clock begins again. The Kringle Curse. Chapter 1. The Family Legacy. The Hawthorne family gathers for Christmas in their ancestral home, a sprawling mansion filled with relics and heirlooms from centuries past. Teenage siblings Evelyn and Mark stumble upon an old diary belonging to their great-grandfather, which hints at a family secret tied to Christmas. Later that evening, their eccentric Uncle Arthur reveals the truth. The Hawthornes are direct descendants of Saint Nicholas. Their family has been cursed for generations to face a shadowy evil known as the Kringle Curse, a sinister force that seeks to destroy the legacy of goodwill and generosity every Christmas Eve. Chapter 2. The Curse Awakens. As Arthur recounts the tale, the house begins to shake, and the fireplace roars to life, spewing black smoke. The room grows cold as shadowy figures appear, whispering threats and warnings. Arthur explains that these are the nightshades, the minions of the Kringle Curse, sent to torment the family and weaken their resolve. Evelyn and Mark, skeptical at first, realize the danger is real when they see the shadows physically interacting with the world, knocking over furniture and attempting to drag their younger cousin, Lily, into the darkness. Chapter 3. The Saint's Secret Weapon. Arthur leads the family to a hidden chamber in the basement, revealing a cache of ancient artifacts passed down from Saint Nicholas himself. Among them are a golden staff, enchanted sleigh bells, and a map that marks the locations of holy sanctuaries where the curse's power can be weakened. The siblings are tasked with using the staff and bells to combat the nightshades, while the rest of the family prepares the house for a siege. Arthur warns that the curse can only be broken by confronting its source, an entity known as the Hollow King, a twisted spirit of greed and corruption. Chapter 4. The Nightshade Assault. As midnight approaches, the nightshades grow bolder, manifesting as grotesque figures with glowing red eyes and skeletal bodies. Evelyn and Mark use the enchanted sleigh bells to repel the creatures, discovering that the sound temporarily disrupts their form. The family barricades themselves in the house, but the nightshades find ways to infiltrate, using mirrors, shadows, and even Christmas decorations to attack. The golden staff proves invaluable, creating barriers of light that shield the family. Chapter 5. The Hollow King's Arrival. At the stroke of midnight, the Hollow King makes his grand entrance, emerging from the fireplace in a storm of ash and flame. He is a towering figure wrapped in tattered, coal-streaked robes, his crown of thorns glowing with an eerie light. The Hollow King taunts the family, revealing that the Kringle Curse was born of Saint Nicholas's betrayal of a fellow immortal who sought to exploit Christmas for personal gain. The Hollow King swears to end the Hawthorne lineage, erasing Saint Nicholas's legacy forever. Chapter 6. The First Battle. The Hollow King summons an army of enhanced nightshades, and the family is forced to split up. Evelyn and Mark lead the fight using the golden staff, while Arthur deciphers the map, searching for clues to the Hollow King's weakness. During the battle, Evelyn discovers the staff's hidden ability. When wielded with pure intent, it can dispel the nightshades permanently. However, the effort drains her strength, leaving her vulnerable. Chapter 7. The Sanctuary's Light. Arthur deciphers the map, identifying a nearby holy sanctuary, the ruins of an old church built by one of their ancestors. The family retreats there, pursued by the Hollow King. Inside the sanctuary, they find an altar inscribed with a prayer of protection. When the family recites the prayer together, the altar emits a blinding light that forces the Hollow King to retreat temporarily. However, the sanctuary is only a safe haven, not a solution. Chapter 8. The Spirit of Christmas. Evelyn realizes that the true power to defeat the Hollow King lies in embodying the spirit of Christmas, selflessness, generosity, and hope. She convinces the family to perform acts of kindness even in the midst of their peril. The family sets out to deliver food and gifts to their neighbors, spreading cheer despite the looming threat. Each act weakens the Hollow King's power, as his strength is tied to greed and despair. Chapter 9. The Final Confrontation. The Hollow King, enraged by the family's defiance, launches a final assault on the sanctuary. Evelyn and Mark use the staff and sleigh bells to hold him at bay while Arthur discovers the key to breaking the curse, a relic known as the Star of Yule, hidden beneath the altar. With the Star of Yule in hand, Evelyn confronts the Hollow King directly. She channels the relic's power, combining it with the staff's light, to banish the Hollow King and his nightshades back to the void. Chapter 10. A New Legacy. As dawn breaks on Christmas Day, the family emerges victorious, the curse finally broken. The house feels lighter, and the relics seem to hum with approval. Arthur explains that their lineage is now free, but they must continue to honor St. Nicholas's legacy by spreading kindness and goodwill. Evelyn and Mark, inspired by the night's events, vow to carry on the family tradition, not as a burden, but as a celebration of the true spirit of Christmas. The Toymaker's Workshop. Chapter 1. The Invitation. The Peterson family, parents Greg and Marie, and their children Emily and Jake, are driving through a snowy mountain town on Christmas Eve when their car breaks down. Stranded, they notice a glowing sign, the Toymaker's Workshop, with an arrow pointing down a winding path. They follow the sign and arrive at a cozy-looking shop filled with handcrafted toys. A cheerful man introduces himself as Mr. Horace, the Toymaker, and invites them inside to wait out the storm. Chapter 2. The Enchanted Toys. Inside the workshop, the family is enchanted by lifelike toys, wooden soldiers that march, teddy bears that wave, and dolls that seem to smile back. Emily and Jake are particularly mesmerized by a life-sized carousel in the corner, its painted horses appearing almost alive. Mr. Horace offers each family member a special toy, a snow globe for Emily, a clockwork train for Jake, a music box for Marie, and a carved chess set for Greg. He insists they take them home as gifts, free of charge. Chapter 3. The Strange Warning. As they prepare to leave, a young boy named Oliver emerges from the shadows, looking pale and frightened. He warns them not to take the toys, claiming they're cursed, but Mr. Horace dismisses him with a sharp glance. The family brushes off Oliver's warning, assuming he's just a mischievous kid. The storm worsens, forcing the family to accept Mr. Horace's invitation to spend the night in the workshop. He shows them to a guest room filled with even more toys, each more intricate than the last. Chapter 4. The Toys Come Alive. That night, the toys spring to life. Emily's snow globe reveals a tiny, moving version of the workshop, but the figures inside mimic her every action. Jake's clockwork train begins running on its own, expanding its track across the room. The family awakens to find the toys behaving strangely. The chess pieces from Greg's set march in formation, their tiny weapons glinting ominously, while Marie's music box plays a haunting melody that echoes throughout the workshop. Chapter 5. The Carousel's Secret. Emily and Jake sneak into the workshop to investigate the carousel. As they approach, it begins to turn, the horses breaking free from their poles and charging toward them. Mr. Horace appears just in time, calming the toys with a single gesture. He explains that the toys are infused with Christmas magic, but assures them there's nothing to fear if they follow the rules. When pressed, he refuses to explain the rules, leaving the family uneasy. Chapter 6. The Truth About the Toymaker. The family discovers Oliver hiding in a storage room, trembling. He reveals that he was once a guest, like them, and is now trapped in the workshop. Mr. Horace, he explains, is no ordinary toymaker but a sorcerer who captures families to fuel his creations. The toys, Oliver says, are made from the souls of those who disobey Mr. Horace's rules. He warns them to leave before it's too late, but the doors and windows of the workshop are sealed shut. Chapter 7. The First Victim. The family tries to resist the toy's magic, but Greg becomes obsessed with his chess set. The pieces whisper strategies to him, promising victory in life if he wins the game. He plays all night, unaware that the longer he engages with the set, the more it drains his energy. By morning, Greg is pale and listless, his movements sluggish. Emily realizes the chess set is stealing his vitality and smashes it, but the damage is done. Mr. Horace appears, furious, and warns them not to destroy his creations again. Chapter 8: The Workshop's Heart. Marie discovers a hidden door leading to the heart of the workshop, a massive furnace surrounded by gears and machinery. Inside, she sees hundreds of glowing orbs, souls, trapped in glass jars. Mr. Horace catches her and reveals his true intent. He feeds on the despair of families, using their souls to power his magical toys. The workshop itself is alive, sustained by the furnace and its collection of stolen lives. Chapter 9: The Families Fight. Emily and Jake rally their parents, determined to destroy the furnace and escape. They enlist the help of Oliver, who knows the workshop's layout. Together, they sabotage the toys, using their enchanted properties against each other. As the family fights their way to the furnace, the toys grow increasingly aggressive. The carousel horses, wooden soldiers, and life-sized dolls all attack, but the family manages to outwit them using creativity and teamwork. Chapter 10: The Toymaker's End. At the furnace, the family confronts Mr. Horace. He tries to tempt them with promises of power and eternal happiness if they surrender, but they refuse. Emily uses the snow globe, which contains a miniature version of the furnace, to disrupt its power. When she shatters the globe, the furnace begins to collapse, and the trapped souls are released. Mr. Horace screams as the workshop crumbles around him. The family and Oliver escape just in time, watching as the building vanishes into the snowstorm. Epilogue: A New Beginning. The family returns home, shaken but grateful to be alive. Oliver is reunited with his own family, who thought he had disappeared years ago. On Christmas morning, Emily finds a single, unmarked toy under the tree, a tiny snow globe containing a flickering light. She places it on the mantle, a reminder of their harrowing adventure and the magic, both light and dark, that lingers in the world. The Bells of Dread. Chapter 1: The Mysterious Bells. The town of Silver Hollow prepares for its annual Christmas festival, but this year, a peculiar set of silver bells appears in the town square. No one knows who brought them, but their melodious chime captivates everyone who hears them. Teenager Clara, a history enthusiast, notices something odd. The bells' intricate carvings resemble ancient symbols she's seen in her grandmother's old books. Despite her unease, the town decides to incorporate the bells into the festival. Chapter 2: The Melody Begins. The festival kicks off with the ceremonial ringing of the bells. As the melody echoes through the square, Clara notices the townsfolk acting strangely. They move in unison, entranced by the sound, their faces serene yet unnervingly blank. Clara's younger brother, Liam, starts humming the tune obsessively, even in his sleep. Clara grows worried when she realizes she's the only one unaffected by the bells' haunting melody. Chapter 3: The Legend of the Bells. Clara visits her grandmother, who reveals a chilling story about the bells. Centuries ago, they were crafted by a reclusive blacksmith who made a pact with a winter spirit. The spirit cursed the bells to lure souls into its icy dimension, feeding off their life force to maintain its power. Grandmother warns Clara to avoid the bells at all costs, but the pull of their melody grows stronger with each passing hour. Chapter 4: The First Disappearance. Liam vanishes during the night, his bed covered in frost. Clara discovers tiny, snowflake-shaped footprints leading out of the house and into the woods. Desperate to save her brother, she retraces the steps to the town square, where the bells ring softly, though no one is touching them. As Clara approaches, she hears faint voices within the melody, including Liam's cries for help. Chapter 5: The Winter Dimension. Determined to rescue Liam, Clara touches the bells, and the world around her dissolves into a ghostly winter landscape. Snow-covered trees surround her, their branches forming eerie, claw-like shapes. The air is bitterly cold, and the sound of the bells grows louder, guiding her deeper into the dimension. Clara encounters spectral figures of the townsfolk, frozen in place but humming the melody. They seem alive yet unreachable, trapped in the spirit's domain. Chapter 6: The Keeper of the Bells. Clara stumbles upon the spirit, a towering, icy figure draped in tattered robes, its face obscured by a swirling blizzard. The spirit, known as the Keeper of the Bells, reveals its intention to consume the souls of all who hear its melody, growing stronger with each victim. It offers Clara a cruel bargain, her freedom in exchange for another soul. Refusing, she vows to find another way to defeat the spirit. Chapter 7: Allies in the Snow. While searching for Liam, Clara meets a small group of survivors who resisted the bell's call. Among them is Oliver, a boy from a neighboring town who's been trapped in the winter dimension for years. Oliver explains that the only way to break the curse is to destroy the bells in the real world, severing the Keeper's connection to their dimension. However, returning to the real world is nearly impossible without confronting the Keeper. Chapter 8: The Frozen Prison. Clara finds Liam encased in ice, his eyes open and glowing faintly. The Keeper uses Liam as bait, attempting to force Clara into surrender. With Oliver's help, she devises a plan to distract the Keeper long enough to free her brother. As Clara breaks the ice encasing Liam, the Keeper's wrath shakes the entire dimension. Snowstorms rage, and the spectral townsfolk begin to move, their hollow eyes fixed on Clara and Oliver. Chapter 9: The Final Melody. Clara realizes the bell's melody is the key to defeating the Keeper. Using her knowledge of music and history, she alters the melody by ringing the bells in reverse order. The dissonant sound disrupts the Keeper's power, weakening its grasp on the dimension. With Oliver's help, Clara and Liam find a portal back to the real world, but the Keeper follows, determined to reclaim its prey. Chapter 10: Breaking the Curse. Back in the town square, Clara rallies the townsfolk, urging them to destroy the bells despite their hypnotic pull. Working together, they manage to melt the bells in the festival's giant bonfire. As the bells melt, the Keeper screams and vanishes, its icy domain collapsing. The entranced townsfolk awaken, dazed but alive, and the missing villagers return, including Oliver. However, he chooses to stay in Silver Hollow, seeking a fresh start. Epilogue: A new tradition. The town bans bells from future festivals, but Clara keeps a small shard of the melted silver as a reminder of their ordeal. On the next Christmas Eve, as snow falls gently over Silver Hollow, a faint melody drifts through the air, a ghostly echo of the bells that once haunted the town. The Ice Palace of the Damned. Chapter 1: The Palace Appears. In the quiet town of Frosthaven, a bitter winter storm uncovers a shimmering ice palace deep in the woods. The townsfolk, curious and enchanted by its beauty, begin to visit the palace. Flyers mysteriously appear overnight, inviting all to a grand holiday ball. Young siblings Elise and Nathan hear rumors of the palace's wonders and decide to explore, ignoring their grandmother's warnings about things that seem too good to be true. Chapter 2: The Enchanted Entrance. Elise and Nathan venture into the woods and find the palace glowing under the moonlight. The towering gates swing open as if expecting them, revealing an opulent interior of ice sculptures, crystalline chandeliers, and a warm, inviting glow. Inside, a host of seemingly friendly attendants welcome them, all dressed in elegant but outdated attire. However, Nathan notices their unnaturally pale skin and lifeless eyes. Chapter 3: The Frostbound Revelers. The siblings are led to a grand hall filled with other visitors, all marveling at the beauty of the palace. A hauntingly beautiful figure introduces herself as Lady Frostine, the palace's hostess. She invites everyone to partake in the feast and festivities. As Elise mingles, Nathan grows uneasy. He notices that the guests who eat the food or dance with the attendants begin to lose their color, their movements becoming slower and more mechanical. Chapter 4: A Warning in the Ice. While exploring the palace, Elise stumbles upon a frozen garden where statues of past visitors are encased in ice. One of the statues, a young boy, briefly comes to life, begging her to leave before turning back to solid ice. Elise realizes the palace is not what it seems. She and Nathan try to leave, but the gates slam shut, trapping them inside. Chapter 5: The Truth About the Palace. Elise and Nathan confront Lady Frostine, who reveals the palace's true purpose. It is a trap, designed to lure visitors and steal their life force to sustain the palace and its attendants. Lady Frostine, once human herself, is bound to the palace by an ancient curse. She offers the siblings a deal: they may leave, but only if they choose another visitor to take their place. Chapter 6: The Forbidden Wing. Determined to find another way, Elise and Nathan sneak into the palace's forbidden wing. They discover an ancient book detailing the curse. The palace was created centuries ago by a sorcerer who sought to escape death, binding Lady Frostein and her guests in an endless cycle of torment. The book hints at a way to break the curse, shattering the palace's heart, a crystal hidden deep within its foundation. Chapter 7: Allies Among the Damned. Elise and Nathan meet other visitors who have resisted the palace's enchantments. Together, they form a plan to find and destroy the heart. However, the palace begins to fight back, sending its attendants to capture the rebels. The group discovers that the attendants were once visitors who failed to escape, now enslaved by the palace's magic. Chapter 8: The Icy Labyrinth. The siblings and their allies navigate the twisting halls of the palace, which shift and change to confuse them. One by one, members of the group are captured, leaving Elise and Nathan to face the final challenge alone. They arrive at a massive, frozen door, guarded by Lady Frostein herself. She pleads with them to stop, warning that destroying the heart will doom everyone trapped in the palace, including her. Chapter 9: The Heart of the Palace. Elise and Nathan push past Lady Frostein and find the heart, a glowing, pulsating crystal embedded in a frozen lake. The palace begins to collapse as they approach, and icy tendrils try to pull them back. With Lady Frostein's voice echoing in their ears, Elise smashes the heart with a shard of ice. A blinding light engulfs the palace as it begins to crumble. Chapter 10: A Frosty Farewell. Elise and Nathan awaken in the woods, surrounded by other freed visitors. The palace is gone, leaving only a patch of frozen ground where it once stood. Lady Frostein appears one last time, now fully human. She thanks the siblings for freeing her, but warns that the curse's magic may return if greed and despair take root in Frosthaven again. As the siblings return to town, snow begins to fall gently, and the woods feel less menacing. But in the distance, a faint shimmer suggests the palace may not be gone for good. The Wrath of the Sugar Plum Fairy. Chapter 1: The Show Must Go On. In a small-town theater, a ballet troupe prepares for their annual production of The Nutcracker. Lead dancer Clara Daniels is thrilled to play the Sugar Plum Fairy for the first time, though whispers of strange occurrences during past productions linger among the cast. On opening night, the troupe discovers a mysterious old music box in the prop storage, engraved with images of fairies. They decide to use it in the performance, believing it will add authenticity to the show. Chapter 2: The Music Box. As the performance begins, Clara wins the music box, unleashing a hauntingly beautiful melody. The audience is mesmerized, but strange things happen backstage. Props move on their own, costumes tangle without explanation, and faint whispers echo in the wings. Unbeknownst to the troupe, the music box has awakened the real Sugar Plum Fairy, a powerful being angered by centuries of humans distorting her story. Chapter 3: A Dance of Shadows. The second night of the performance grows darker. Cast members report seeing a shadowy figure with glowing eyes flitting among the rafters. Clara begins having vivid dreams of a forest made of candy, twisted and decaying, where the Sugar Plum Fairy warns her to stop the ballet or face dire consequences. Despite her fear, Clara decides the show must go on, fearing ridicule if she backs out. Chapter 4: The Fairy's First Strike. During rehearsal, chaos erupts. The music box wins itself, playing the melody at an ear-piercing pitch. Dancers are thrown off balance, sets collapse, and one cast member is injured. Clara sees the shadowy figure again, and this time, it speaks. "You've stolen my story. Now, I'll take yours." The troupe begins to fracture, but Clara convinces them to continue, thinking the incidents are coincidences. Chapter 5: Candy-Colored Terror. As the final performance approaches, reality begins to blur. Cast members disappear, leaving behind only candy fragments. The music box's melody grows louder, heard even when it isn't wound. Clara discovers that the Sugar Plum Fairy's magic has turned the town's Christmas decorations into grotesque, living creatures that stalk the night. Chapter 6: The Sugar Plum's Realm. Clara and the remaining cast members are lured to the theater late one night by the music box's song. They find themselves transported to the Sugar Plum Fairy's realm, a once beautiful land now corrupted into a nightmare of rotting gingerbread houses and skeletal nutcrackers. The fairy confronts them, revealing her wrath stems from humanity's mockery of her true purpose. She was a guardian of joy, but greed and distortion have tainted her magic. Chapter 7: A Dance for Redemption. The Sugar Plum Fairy offers Clara a chance to save her friends. Clara must perform a flawless ballet, proving that human creativity and passion still honor the fairy's legacy. However, if she falters, they will remain trapped in the fairy's realm forever. Clara accepts the challenge, despite the odds stacked against her. The fairy warps the stage, making each step a perilous test. Chapter 8: The Final Waltz. As Clara dances, her memories of past Christmases and her love for ballet fuel her determination. She finds a way to incorporate the fairy's original melody into her performance, weaving it seamlessly with the Nutcracker score. Moved by Clara's sincerity, the Sugar Plum Fairy hesitates, but her darker side refuses to relent, launching a final attack on the dancers. Chapter 9: Breaking the Curse. Clara, with help from her fellow dancers, confronts the fairy's shadowy side, realizing it's a manifestation of her own pain and anger. By showing compassion and offering to share the true story of the Sugar Plum Fairy in future performances, Clara begins to heal the fairy's fractured spirit. The fairy, now restored to her original form, releases the dancers and the town from her wrath. Chapter 10: A New Beginning. The ballet ends with a reimagined performance, blending the fairy's true tale with the Nutcracker. The music box is placed on display in the theater, a reminder of the power and responsibility of storytelling. As the curtain falls, Clara sees a glimmer of the Sugar Plum Fairy watching from the wings, her wrath replaced by gratitude. The 12 Terrors of Christmas. Chapter 1: The Gift. Emma Daniels, a single mother, finds an antique advent calendar in a thrift shop. Intrigued by its intricate design and hand-painted wooden doors, she buys it for her son, Max, as a way to bring some holiday magic to their quiet lives. Each door contains a small charm, starting with a snowflake. On December 1st, Max opens the first door and places the charm on the mantle. That night, a heavy snowstorm begins, far out of season for their town. Chapter 2: The Frozen Visitor. On December 2nd, the charm is a tiny snowman. Max leaves it by the snowflake. That evening, a life-sized snowman appears in their yard, smiling eerily. By morning, Emma notices it has moved closer to the house. Its grin is wider, and its stick arms now point toward the front door. Chapter 3: The Careless. The third charm is a golden bell. That night, Emma and Max hear faint caroling outside. Looking through the window, they see shadowy figures holding candles. The haunting melody grows louder, and Emma realizes the lyrics mention her family by name. Chapter 4: The Reindeer's Gaze. December 4th's charm is a reindeer. The next day, strange hoofprints appear on the roof, and Max swears he sees glowing red eyes watching him from the shadows. Emma dismisses it as a prank until she hears heavy footsteps on the ceiling. Chapter 5: The Silent Night. The fifth charm is a small angel. That night, all sound disappears. Emma and Max can't hear their own voices or any noise at all. When Max opens the calendar door for the next day, the sound suddenly returns with a deafening scream. Chapter 6: The Creeping Ivy. The sixth charm is a holly leaf. By evening, ivy begins growing uncontrollably throughout the house, wrapping around furniture and choking doorways. Emma tries to cut it back, but it grows faster than she can manage, as if alive. Chapter 7: The Gingerbread Trap. December 7th's charm is a gingerbread man. Max bakes cookies with Emma, but the cookies begin to move, their icing faces twisted into screams. One leaps from the tray, scurrying under the stove. That night, Emma swears she hears tiny footsteps. Chapter 8: The Broken Toy. The eighth charm is a toy soldier. At midnight, Emma hears clattering from the attic. She discovers old toys from her childhood moving on their own, marching like an army toward Max's room. Chapter 9: The Krampus Comes. December 9th's charm is a small horn. Emma wakes to find claw marks on the walls and soot leading from the fireplace. Max begins speaking of a horned man watching him in his dreams, promising to punish the naughty. Chapter 10: The Frosted Nightmare. The 10th charm is an icicle. That night, the temperature plummets inside the house. Frost crawls up the windows, and Emma finds the walls covered in messages scratched into the ice, warning them to stop opening the doors. Chapter 11. The Midnight Feast. December 11th's charm is a Christmas feast. That evening, a table appears in their dining room, set with food Emma doesn't recognize. Max sits at the table, trance-like, as shadowy figures begin appearing, waiting for him to eat. Emma drags him away, but the figures remain, watching. Chapter 12. The Final Door. The 12th charm is a key. Emma realizes it fits into the back of the calendar. She hesitates, but Max, compelled by a force she can't stop, inserts the key. The calendar unfolds into a glowing portal. A towering, malevolent being emerges, calling itself the Keeper of Yule. It reveals that the Advent calendar was a vessel to summon it, feeding on the fear and chaos it caused. Chapter 13. The Fight for Christmas. Emma confronts the Keeper, using the charms to weaken it. She pieces together that each charm represents a Christmas tradition, and by honoring the true meaning behind them, joy, family, and generosity, she can banish the entity. With Max's help, she manages to close the portal, but the calendar remains, its final door now mysteriously sealed. The Carol of the Bones. A group of friends uncovers an ancient Christmas carol written in mysterious runes at a local antique shop. Intrigued by its haunting melody, they decide to sing it. But the carol is a forbidden hymn that awakens skeletal beings from the earth, bound to hunt and claim the singers as their final offering. The friends must uncover the carol's origins and break its curse before they become part of its eternal choir. Chapter 1. The Forgotten Song. The story begins with 5 friends, Emma, Jake, Sarah, Liam, and Claire, browsing through an old antique shop while looking for unique Christmas decorations. Emma finds a worn leather-bound book containing sheet music titled The Carol of the Bones. The melody is eerie yet mesmerizing, and its lyrics are written in ancient runes. The shopkeeper warns them against taking the book, claiming it brings misfortune, but Emma buys it anyway, dismissing his warnings as superstition. Chapter 2. A Haunting Harmony. That night, the group gathers at Emma's house to decorate and listen to holiday music. Jake, a music enthusiast, deciphers the runes with the help of an online translator. Curious, the friends decide to sing the carol, intrigued by its dark and haunting tone. As they finish the final verse, a chilling silence falls. Suddenly, the ground outside begins to tremble. They hear faint, bone-chilling rattles, and the melody seems to echo from nowhere. Chapter 3. The First Hunt. The next day, Liam notices skeletal footprints in the snow leading to his house. That evening, as he walks home alone, he hears the melody of the carol playing faintly in the wind. A skeletal figure emerges, its hollow eye sockets glowing with an unnatural light. Liam narrowly escapes and warns the others, but none of them believe him until Sarah begins hearing the melody in her dreams. She wakes up to find her bedroom filled with the scent of decay. Chapter 4. The Curse Unveiled. The group revisits the antique shop for answers, but the shopkeeper has vanished, leaving behind only a cryptic note: the song binds the living to the dead. Silence it, or join them forever. Digging deeper, they discover that the Carol of the Bones originated from a cursed village that used the song to summon skeletal guardians to protect them from invaders. But the villagers betrayed the guardians, binding them to an eternal hunt. Chapter 5. The First Loss. One by one, the skeletal hunters grow bolder. Jake is the first victim, lured into the woods by the haunting melody. The others find his body frozen and lifeless, with bony handprints etched into his skin. The remaining friends realize they must find a way to silence the carol before all of them are claimed. Chapter 6. The Bone Choir. The group travels to the cursed village, now a desolate ruin. As they explore, they find a bone-chilling mural depicting the carol's origin. Villagers encircled by skeletal beings, their mouths wide open in eternal song. The mural reveals a way to end the curse. The song must be sung backward in the presence of the hunters, but doing so risks drawing them all at once. Chapter 7. The Trap. The group devises a plan to lure the skeletal hunters to the village. Emma, the bravest of the group, agrees to sing the carol backward while Sarah and Liam keep watch. The air grows colder as the hunters rise from the earth, their skeletal forms illuminated by the moonlight. The melody twists and warps as Emma struggles to reverse the song. The hunters begin closing in, their bony fingers reaching out. Chapter 8, the final verse. Just as the hunters are about to claim Emma, Claire joins her in singing, their voices harmonizing. The reversed melody creates a piercing sound that shatters the silence. The skeletal hunters freeze, their forms beginning to crumble. However, the carol demands a price. The singers must offer a part of themselves to complete the ritual. Emma and Claire sacrifice their voices, ensuring the hunters are bound forever. Chapter 9, the aftermath. With the carol silenced, the hunters vanish, and the village returns to its eerie quiet. Emma and Claire can no longer speak, but they are alive, and the others vow to honor their sacrifice. The cursed book disintegrates into ash, ensuring no one else can unleash the carol again. Chapter 10, a silent Christmas. Back in their town, the group tries to move on. Liam and Sarah organize a Christmas celebration, dedicating it to Jake and the voices of Emma and Claire. As snow falls, a faint melody echoes in the wind, but this time, it brings peace rather than fear. The friends know the hunters are gone, but they will never forget the price of their song. The Gift of Fear. Chapter 1, Christmas Morning. The Walker family wakes up to a seemingly perfect Christmas morning in their suburban home. As they gather around the tree, they notice that a set of gifts has appeared overnight. The wrapping paper is dark red, textured, and slightly damp. None of them recognize the handwriting on the tags, which bear their names. Despite their unease, curiosity gets the better of them, and they open the gifts. Each one contains a cryptic object. A cracked pocket watch for father, Richard. A burned doll for mother, Claire. A rusted key for their teenage son, Jake. A blood-stained ribbon for their young daughter, Lily. Chapter 2, the First Omen. Richard takes the pocket watch to an antique shop, only to be told it once belonged to a man who died in a tragic factory accident. Meanwhile, Lily begins hearing whispers from her ribbon, which she insists is telling her secrets. That night, Claire dreams of a fire consuming their home. She wakes to the scent of smoke, but no fire is found. Jake investigates the attic, using the rusted key, and finds a hidden box filled with old newspaper clippings about a fire that killed the house's previous occupants decades ago. Chapter 3, the Warning. The family finds a note tucked inside the doll. It reads, "Your gifts are warnings. Pay attention, or the same fate awaits you." Claire researches the house's history and learns about the tragic deaths of the Wilkes family. The similarities are chilling. They, too, had 2 children, a teenage boy and a young girl, and died under mysterious circumstances. Chapter 4, the haunting begins. Strange events escalate. Richard's pocket watch begins ticking, counting down to a specific time. Claire hears faint sobbing throughout the house, growing louder each night. Jake sees shadowy figures in the attic. Lily begins talking to an unseen friend, describing them as covered in red. The family tries to dismiss the events as their imaginations, but a sense of dread grows. Chapter 5, the tragedy unfolds. Richard notices the pocket watch counting down to Christmas Eve. The family decides to stay with relatives, but their car won't start, and the phone lines are dead. They are trapped in the house. The blood-soaked ribbon around Lily's wrist begins to tighten, leaving a mark that resembles a handprint. Jake's rusted key seems to change shape, as though unlocking something sinister. Chapter 6, the Shadows Revelations. A ghostly figure appears to Claire, whispering, "They want what's theirs." She realizes that the family is being punished for moving into the Wilkes home. The gifts are manifestations of the Wilkes family's tragedy, warning the Walkers to prevent history from repeating. Chapter 7, the Final Countdown. The pocket watch strikes midnight, and the house shakes violently. Jake unlocks a door in the basement that wasn't there before. Inside, the family finds the skeletal remains of the Wilkes family, bound in chains, with a blood-stained ribbon tying their wrists. The Wilkes spirits appear, explaining they were cursed to haunt the house until their deaths were avenged. They accuse the Walkers of triggering the curse by ignoring the warnings. Chapter 8, the Sacrifice. The only way to break the curse is for one Walker to offer their life as penance. The family refuses, vowing to find another way. The spirits warn that if no sacrifice is made by dawn, the curse will claim them all. Chapter 9, the Gift of Hope. Claire pieces together that the gifts represent not only warnings but also tools for salvation. The pocket watch can reverse time. The burned doll is tied to the youngest Wilkes child, who holds the key to breaking the curse. The rusted key unlocks the spiritual chains binding the Wilkes family. The ribbon represents the connection between the living and the dead. Working together, the Walkers use the gifts to perform a ritual of release, freeing the Wilkes family from their torment. Chapter 10: A New Dawn. As dawn breaks, the house returns to normal. The Walker family sits in silence, forever changed by their experience. The gifts vanish, leaving behind only the faint scent of smoke and blood. The Walkers decide to move, but they will never forget the lesson of their terrifying Christmas. Sometimes, gifts are meant to save, not to celebrate. The Snow Angel's Revenge. On a frosty winter morning, 10-year-old Ella makes the perfect snow angel in her backyard, unaware that her creation would take on a life of its own. That night, an icy doppelganger emerges from the snow angel, mimicking Ella's movements and actions, but with one difference: it wants her life. As the snow angel becomes more human-like and starts replacing Ella, she must find a way to stop it before she disappears forever. Chapter 1: The Perfect Snow Angel. Ella loves snowy days, and this one is perfect for building snowmen and making snow angels. Venturing into her backyard, she meticulously crafts the most flawless snow angel she's ever made. As she finishes, a strange chill runs through her body, but she brushes it off as winters bite. Unbeknownst to her, something ancient and malevolent stirs beneath the snow. Chapter 2: The First Signs. That night, Ella wakes up to a tapping sound on her window. Looking out, she sees her snow angel, now glowing faintly in the moonlight. Thinking it's her imagination, she goes back to bed. The next morning, she finds an odd footprint trail leading from the snow angel to her bedroom window. Her parents dismiss her concerns, but Ella feels uneasy. Chapter 3: A Doppelganger Emerges. Ella begins noticing strange occurrences. Her reflection in mirrors sometimes doesn't match her movements, and her parents seem confused when they claim to have spoken to her when she wasn't around. One evening, she spots a figure in her backyard, a girl identical to her, with icy blue eyes and frost-tipped hair. The figure smiles before vanishing into the shadows. Chapter 4: The Snow Angel's Intent. Ella confides in her best friend, Liam, who helps her investigate. They research local legends and learn of the frost shadows, icy doppelgangers created by children's snow angels. These beings seek to replace their creators, stealing their warmth and lives to survive. Liam suggests destroying the snow angel, but when they try, a storm suddenly brews, forcing them back inside. Chapter 5: The Icy Infiltration. The snow angel doppelganger becomes bolder, appearing inside Ella's home when her parents aren't around. It begins mimicking her voice and actions, confusing her parents and driving a wedge between them and Ella. One chilling moment occurs when Ella catches the doppelganger wearing her clothes, sitting at the dinner table with her parents, who fail to notice the difference. Chapter 6: A Dangerous Plan. Ella and Liam realize they must destroy the snow angel's heart, its icy core buried beneath where it was made. However, to do so, they must face the snow angel directly. They prepare by gathering tools, shovels, salt, and a lighter. Ella's parents, unaware of the danger, dismiss her frantic warnings, leaving her feeling more isolated than ever. Chapter 7: The Showdown. That night, Ella and Liam venture into the backyard. The snow angel has fully transformed into Ella's icy twin, its movements eerily perfect but devoid of warmth. The doppelganger taunts Ella, claiming her life isn't worth fighting for. A fierce battle ensues as the doppelganger uses the snow and cold to its advantage, summoning icicles and frost to attack. Liam distracts it long enough for Ella to dig into the snow angel's core. Chapter 8: Breaking the Curse. As Ella strikes the core with salt and fire, the doppelganger lets out an unearthly scream. It begins to crumble, turning back into snow. However, it warns Ella that destroying it comes at a price. A piece of her soul will always remain in the snow. The storm calms, and the doppelganger disintegrates, leaving only Ella and Liam standing in the silence. Chapter 9: The Aftermath. Ella's parents find her and Liam in the backyard, shaken but unharmed. They apologize for not believing her, though they'll never fully understand what happened. Ella feels different, colder, as though part of her truly was taken. But she's relieved the nightmare is over. Chapter 10. The Last Snowfall. Winter gives way to spring, and the snow melts away. However, on the last day of frost, Ella sees a faint imprint of a snow angel in her backyard, untouched by the thaw. She hears a faint whisper, "I'll always be watching." Ella resolves to never make another snow angel, but she knows some winters bring more than just cold.